As the great Buddha once wisely said, your purpose in life is to find your purpose and give your whole heart and soul to it. Yet in today's world, many wander through life feeling empty, as if their existence has no real meaning. You wake up, you work, you eat, you scroll, you sleep, and tomorrow it repeats. You may even start to wonder, why am I here? What's the point? This is the silent crisis of our age, the absence of meaning. But Buddhism offers a profound truth. Meaning is not found in the world outside. It is cultivated within. It's not something waiting for you in the future, but something you create in the present. Today, I want to share with you 7 powerful lessons from Buddhist wisdom that can help you find purpose, even when life feels empty, and transform your existence into something deeply fulfilling. 1. Accept the emptiness, don't fight it. In Buddhism, emptiness, shunyata, is not a curse, nor is it a flaw in life. It is the very starting point of awakening. The challenge is not that life feels empty, but that we have been conditioned to fear that emptiness, as if it is a sign something is wrong with us. From a young age, we are taught that we must constantly fill our days with activity, entertainment, possessions, and social approval to feel alive. When that stimulation fades and we are left with only ourselves, a wave of discomfort often washes over us. This is when many try to run from silence, from solitude, from the quiet spaces of life, by drowning themselves in distractions, endless scrolling, background noise, and the pursuit of material things. But here's the truth. The more we fight emptiness, the more it deepens, and the further we drift from real meaning. Emptiness is not a void to escape. It is a canvas waiting for you to paint your life upon it. Think of it as standing in a room with white walls. Nothing is fixed yet, which means everything is possible. In its pure form, emptiness is freedom. Freedom from the pressure of living according to someone else's expectations. Freedom from the noise that clouds your clarity. Freedom to explore your own mind without distraction. When you stop trying to erase emptiness and instead sit with it, something powerful happens. You begin to see it not as nothingness, but as spaciousness. In that stillness, your racing thoughts slow, the fog in your mind begins to lift, and the first gentle spark of true purpose flickers to life. It is in this acceptance of emptiness, rather than in the frantic attempt to fill it, that the journey toward meaning truly begins. 2. See life as service, not a transaction. In Buddhism, one of the most profound truths is that life becomes deeply meaningful when we live for more than just ourselves. Yet in today's fast-paced, achievement-driven world, many of us unknowingly view life as a constant exchange, a transaction. We measure every action by what we can get in return: more money, more recognition, more benefits, more status. Without realizing it, we begin to treat relationships, careers, and even acts of kindness as investments that must pay us back. But this mindset slowly erodes the soul, because genuine meaning does not grow from self-centered accumulation. It blossoms when we shift from "what can I take" to "what can I give." In Buddhism, the concept of dana, or selfless giving, reminds us that the purest form of fulfillment comes when we contribute to the well-being of others without expecting anything in return. This doesn't mean you must make grand sacrifices or dedicate your life to charity in a dramatic way. It begins with small, sincere acts. Listening to someone who feels unseen, offering your time to help a friend in need, sharing your skills without charging a fee, feeding a stray animal, or simply smiling at someone who looks like they've had a hard day. These gestures may seem insignificant in the moment, but they plant seeds of compassion and connection that ripple far beyond what we can imagine. And here is the beauty. When you live in service, the emptiness inside begins to transform. Your life stops being about endlessly chasing happiness for yourself and becomes about creating moments of joy and relief for others. That, in turn, reflects back on you in ways no amount of wealth or recognition ever could. Service opens your heart, quiets your ego, and gives you a reason to wake up each day with a sense of purpose that does not fade when circumstances change. In the Buddhist view, to live meaningfully is to live in a way that eases suffering, yours and that of others. And the more you embrace life as service, the more you will discover that giving is not a loss. It is the very act that makes you feel alive. 3. Detach from the illusion of the perfect life. One of the greatest thieves of meaning in our modern world is the quiet but relentless pressure to live up to the illusion of the perfect life. Every day, without even realizing it, we are bombarded with images, stories, and highlight reels of people who seem to have everything. Flawless relationships, endless travel, impressive careers, and picture-perfect moments captured under golden sunlight. Social media has turned comparison into a daily habit, and slowly it starts to whisper a dangerous lie into our minds. You're not enough, you're not doing enough, you're not living enough. But Buddhism teaches that this is an illusion, a projection created by the mind. The life you are comparing yourself to is not even real. It's a carefully curated version of reality, polished to hide the same imperfections, struggles, and doubts you carry in your own heart. The more we measure our worth against this illusion, the more inadequate we feel, and the more meaningless life appears. This is the trap. Chasing someone else's idea of happiness will always leave you feeling empty because it was never yours to begin with. Detaching from the illusion of the perfect life does not mean giving up on your dreams or settling for less. It means awakening to the truth that meaning is not measured by how closely your life matches society's checklist. It means freeing yourself from the exhausting race to prove your worth through external appearances. In Buddhism, the practice of mindfulness teaches us to come home to the present moment, to see the beauty in what is real and immediate, rather than constantly yearning for a life that exists only in our imagination. Your morning coffee savored in quiet peace is real. The laughter you share with a friend is real. The courage it takes to keep going through hard times is real. These are not staged moments. They are lived moments, and they carry far more meaning than any filtered photograph could ever capture. When you let go of the fantasy of a perfect life, you open the door to the possibility of a fulfilling life, one shaped by your own values, passions, and truth. This freedom allows you to focus on what genuinely matters to you rather than chasing what you think will impress others. It's the moment you realize that your life doesn't need to look like anyone else's for it to be worth living. You are not here to be a copy, you are here to be your own original. The illusion of the perfect life keeps you running in circles, but authenticity sets you free. And once you start walking your own path, the emptiness you felt begins to dissolve, replaced by a quiet but unshakable sense of purpose that is truly yours. 4. Discover the Dharma, your path of right living. In Buddhism, the word Dharma carries a depth of meaning that can transform how we see our entire existence. It is often translated as truth, cosmic law, or the path of right living, but in reality, it is much more than that. It is the compass that guides you toward a life that is both meaningful and harmonious with the nature of reality itself. To discover your Dharma is to find the way of living that feels aligned not just with your desires, but with your deepest values, your highest wisdom, and the greater good of all beings. It is the art of living in a way that feels right in your bones, not because someone else says it is right, but because it resonates with the quiet truth within your own heart. Yet in today's world, many people live without ever discovering their Dharma. They follow paths laid out by others, parents, teachers, society, cultural expectations, without stopping to ask, does this way of living truly fit me? Is this the life I am meant to live? We are told from childhood to chase success, stability, and status, But rarely are we taught to pause and listen to the whispers of our soul. Without Dharma, life can easily feel like a series of mechanical motions. You wake up, go to work, do what's expected, and repeat the cycle, all while wondering why something still feels missing. The truth is, when your daily actions are disconnected from your inner truth, no amount of external achievement will make you feel truly fulfilled. This is why Buddhism places such emphasis on the Eightfold Path, because it is a framework for discovering and living your Dharma. The Eightfold Path teaches principles such as right view, right intention, right speech, right action, and right livelihood. These are not strict religious rules. They are signposts pointing you toward a life in harmony with yourself and the world around you. For example, right livelihood asks you to choose work that does not harm others and ideally benefits them. Many people endure jobs that drain their soul because they believe it's the only way to survive, but if your work contradicts your values, it will erode your spirit over time. Right speech reminds us to speak in ways that heal rather than harm. Right action calls us to live with integrity and compassion in everything we do. Together, these practices shape a life that feels purposeful, even if it doesn't follow society's definition of success. Discovering your Dharma does not happen overnight. It is not a single aha moment. It is an ongoing process of self-discovery, reflection, and realignment. It begins with awareness, slowing down enough to ask yourself, what feels meaningful to me? What brings me a sense of peace? What lights a spark in my heart? It might be a particular type of work, a cause you care about, an art form you love, or a way of helping others. Your Dharma may be bold and public, like leading a movement or creating something that changes the world, or it may be quiet and humble, like nurturing a family, tending to a garden, or being a source of kindness in your community. What matters is not the size of your role in the world, but the sincerity with which you live it. Sometimes your Dharma will emerge from your deepest wounds. In Buddhism, suffering is not wasted. It can shape you into someone who understands the struggles of others and has the strength to guide them. If you have endured loss, hardship, or betrayal, your Dharma may be to use that experience to bring hope and wisdom to others walking the same path. Other times, your Dharma will be an extension of your natural gifts. We all have unique abilities, ways of seeing, thinking, or doing that, when expressed, bring value to others. Your Dharma is the meeting point of what you love, what you are naturally good at, and what serves the greater good. Living in alignment with your Dharma brings a sense of flow to life. Decisions become clearer because you measure them against your deepest truth. Challenges still come, but they no longer leave you feeling lost because you know you are walking a path that matters. You stop feeling like a stranger in your own life. Instead, you wake each day with the quiet confidence that no matter what happens, you are living in a way that is true to yourself. This is why the Buddha emphasized not only finding the Dharma, but also committing to it fully. Because meaning does not come from discovering the path alone. It comes from walking it with dedication, even when it is difficult. The modern world often confuses purpose with achievement. It tells you that meaning is found in reaching the next milestone, gaining the next possession, or earning the next title. But Dharma is different. It is not about arriving at a destination. It is about living in alignment at every step. A life lived in Dharma may look simple from the outside, but inside it is rich with clarity, peace, and direction. It allows you to look at your days not as something to endure until something better happens, but as opportunities to live fully right now. To discover your Dharma, you must give yourself permission to step back from the noise of the world and listen deeply. Spend time in stillness. Reflect on what truly matters to you. Be honest about where you are living out of fear or obligation rather than from the truth of your heart. and then begin to take small, consistent steps toward the life that feels aligned with your inner calling. You don't need to change everything overnight. Each choice that aligns with your Dharma is a brick laid in the foundation of a meaningful life. In Buddhism, living without Dharma is like drifting in a boat without a rudder. You may move, but you have no direction. Living with Dharma is like sailing with the wind at your back, your heart aligned with your purpose, and your eyes open to the beauty of the journey. This is the secret to transforming a meaningless life into one filled with quiet joy. Find your Dharma, and then live it with your whole being. 5. Find meaning in the journey, not the destination. One of the greatest illusions that steals the joy from life is the belief that meaning will arrive only when we reach some final destination. We tell ourselves, when I achieve this goal, when I find the right partner, when I make enough money, when I finally become the person I want to be, then my life will feel complete. This thinking keeps us in a constant state of waiting, as if real life is something that will begin only after we cross a certain finish line. But here is the painful truth. Once we arrive at that goal, we often find that the sense of fulfillment we expected is fleeting. We may feel a burst of excitement, a brief satisfaction, but then the mind quickly moves the goalpost. Now there is a new achievement to chase, a new milestone to reach, a new version of ourselves to create. And so, the cycle repeats, leaving us forever chasing the horizon, but never truly arriving. Buddhism teaches that this is one of the root causes of suffering, clinging to the idea that happiness is somewhere in the future rather than right here in the present moment. The Buddha explained that craving and attachment keep us bound to an endless cycle of dissatisfaction. When we are attached to a future outcome, we neglect the simple truth that life is happening right now, in the ordinary moments between the milestones. If we are always fixated on the destination, we miss the beauty, lessons, and richness of the path itself. Imagine hiking up a mountain with your eyes fixed only on the peak. You might reach it eventually, but along the way you would have missed the cool shade of the trees, the songs of the birds, the fresh air filling your lungs, and the breathtaking views that reveal themselves at each turn. The mountain peak lasts only a few moments. The journey is where most of life actually happens. This is why Buddhism emphasizes mindful presence. It is the practice of truly being where you are, without rushing ahead in your mind to what comes next. When you are mindful, even the smallest actions can become meaningful. Washing the dishes becomes an act of care and gratitude for the meal you enjoyed. Walking to work becomes an opportunity to feel the earth beneath your feet and notice the changing colors of the sky. Conversations become richer because you are not distracted, but listening deeply. These moments may seem ordinary, but when you are fully present, they begin to glow with a quiet beauty, and this is where meaning starts to bloom. Another reason it is dangerous to focus only on the destination is that it creates a fragile sense of purpose. If your entire sense of meaning is tied to achieving a specific outcome, what happens if you never reach it? Or what happens when circumstances change and that destination is no longer possible? Many people crumble in these moments because they have built their entire sense of worth on something outside themselves. But when you root your purpose in the journey, in how you live each day, you become unshakable. Even if the destination changes, your sense of meaning remains because it is not dependent on a single result. It is woven into the very way you walk through life. This does not mean you should have no goals or aspirations. Goals can give direction, like a compass pointing you forward. But they are not the purpose of life. They are the byproducts of living with intention. In Buddhism, the goal is not to cling to the fruit, but to tend to the tree. If you care for the tree, nourish it, water it, give it sunlight, the fruit will come naturally. Similarly, if you live each day with mindfulness, compassion, and integrity, the outcomes you desire will emerge in their own time, but you will not have suffered in the waiting. Finding meaning in the journey also means embracing the challenges along the way. The path is not always smooth. There will be setbacks, failures, and disappointments. But these are not interruptions to the journey. They are the journey. Every challenge shapes you, strengthens you, and deepens your understanding of life. Sometimes, the most difficult stretches of the path are the ones that prepare you for the moments of profound growth and transformation. If you rush past them, longing only for the easier parts ahead, you miss the wisdom they are offering. To truly find meaning in the journey, you must shift your focus from "how fast can I get there" to "how deeply can I live here?" This is the heart of the Buddhist practice of right effort. It is not about racing toward a goal at all costs, but about walking the path with balance, awareness, and care. It is recognizing that each step matters just as much as the final destination. When you live this way, purpose stops being something you chase. It becomes something you carry with you. Think about the people you admire most, not because of their titles or achievements, but because of the way they live. Perhaps it's someone who treats everyone with kindness, regardless of status. Perhaps it's someone who moves through life with grace, even in hardship. Perhaps it's someone who approaches every day as a chance to grow and serve. These people are living examples of finding meaning in the journey. They remind us that a fulfilled life is not built by waiting for the big moments. It is created by how we show up for the small ones, over and over again. When you begin to see the journey itself as the purpose, life changes in profound ways. You stop rushing past your own existence, hoping that meaning will magically appear later. You start noticing the sacredness in the seemingly ordinary, the way sunlight falls through your window in the morning, the sound of rain tapping on the roof, the warmth of tea between your hands, the feeling of being truly heard by another human being. You realize that the meaning you were searching for was never hiding in some far-off future. It has been walking beside you all along, waiting for you to slow down enough to notice. In the end, the truth is simple but transformative. The destination is a moment. The journey is your life. Don't postpone living until you arrive somewhere. Don't believe the lie that meaning will appear only when you have made it. Instead, let each step, each breath, each choice be the purpose you are seeking. This is how emptiness dissolves, how life regains its color, and how you discover that the path you are on right now is already sacred. 6. Transform suffering into growth. Suffering is one of life's most undeniable realities. No matter who you are, no matter how much you try to avoid it, life will hand you moments of loss, heartbreak, disappointment, failure, and pain. Many people see suffering as something purely negative, something to be escaped at all costs. We distract ourselves, numb ourselves, or bury our pain so deeply that we pretend it's not there. But Buddhism teaches something radically different. Suffering is not just an obstacle to happiness. It is the very soil in which the seeds of wisdom, compassion, and true purpose grow. If you avoid suffering, you also avoid the deeper transformation it can bring. The Buddha himself placed suffering at the very heart of his teachings in what is known as the Four Noble Truths. The first truth is simple but profound. Suffering is an inseparable part of life. But the second truth is equally important. It is not suffering itself that destroys us, but our clinging, our resistance, and our refusal to face it. When we fight against pain, when we tell ourselves, "this should not be happening," we trap ourselves in a cycle of bitterness and despair. Yet, when we lean in with awareness and acceptance, something remarkable happens. Suffering begins to reveal its hidden teachings. Think of a lotus flower, one of the most powerful symbols in Buddhism. It grows in the thickest mud, in water that is murky and dark. But instead of being weighed down by the mud, the lotus uses it as nourishment, rising above the surface to bloom in breathtaking beauty. The mud is not an enemy to the lotus, it is its foundation. In the same way, your suffering can become the fertile ground for your own awakening. The heartbreak that shatters your illusions can open your heart to deeper empathy. The failure that humbles you can strengthen your resilience and determination. The loss that leaves you empty can make you more aware of the preciousness of every moment you have. Transforming suffering into growth begins with acceptance. This does not mean you have to like your pain or pretend it doesn't hurt. It means you stop wasting your energy wishing reality was different. You allow yourself to feel your emotions fully, without judgment, and without rushing to fix them. You give your pain permission to exist. This is not weakness, it is courage. Avoidance may feel easier in the short term, but it only delays the healing. Acceptance, on the other hand, begins to soften the edges of suffering, making space for understanding to arise. The second step is to shift your perspective. Pain often narrows our vision, making us see only what we have lost. But if you can step back and ask, what is this trying to teach me? How can I grow through this? You open the door to transformation. Perhaps your suffering is showing you that you have been living out of alignment with your values. Perhaps it is reminding you that nothing in life is guaranteed and that each day is a gift. Perhaps it is revealing hidden strengths you didn't know you had. In Buddhism, this shift in perspective is part of right view, the ability to see things as they are without distortion, and to recognize that every experience, even the painful ones, can be a teacher. Another way to transform suffering is through compassion, both for yourself and for others. When you suffer, it is easy to turn inward in self-pity or outward in resentment. But suffering is a universal experience. When you remember that everyone you meet has their own unseen burdens, your pain becomes a bridge of connection rather than a wall of isolation. You begin to soften toward others, realizing that they too are walking through their own storms. This deepens your empathy, making you a more understanding and kinder human being. It's also important to recognize that suffering often strips away what is false. It exposes illusions, ego-driven goals, and shallow attachments. Pain has a way of showing us what truly matters. After a deep loss, you may find that the things you once obsessed over, status, possessions, petty conflicts, no longer hold the same weight. Instead, you start cherishing moments of connection, acts of kindness, and the quiet beauty of simply being alive. This is one of suffering's most powerful gifts. It clarifies your vision and aligns you more closely with your true values. In Buddhism, meditation is a powerful tool for transforming suffering. By sitting with your thoughts and emotions without trying to push them away, you learn to see them as passing phenomena rather than permanent realities. You realize that pain, like joy, is impermanent. It will rise, peak, and eventually fade. This understanding helps you hold your suffering more lightly, without letting it define your identity. You are not your pain. You are the awareness that holds it. Sometimes, the growth that comes from suffering is not visible right away. Just as a seed needs time in the dark soil before it sprouts, the lessons of pain often take time to reveal themselves. But if you remain open and patient, you will look back one day and realize that your hardest seasons were the ones that shaped you the most. The strength, wisdom, and compassion you now carry are the fruits of those difficult times. It is natural to wish for a life without suffering, but such a life does not exist. What you can choose is how you meet your suffering. You can let it harden you, close you off, and keep you bitter. Or you can let it soften you, deepen you, and guide you toward a richer, more meaningful existence. This choice determines whether suffering becomes your prison or your teacher. In the end, transforming suffering into growth is about reclaiming your power. You may not control what happens to you, but you can control how you respond. You can decide that your pain will not be wasted. You can decide to rise from it wiser, stronger, and more compassionate than you were before. And when you do, you will find that suffering, far from being meaningless, becomes one of the most powerful sources of meaning in your life. 7. Live with compassionate purpose. If there is one thing that can give life an unshakable sense of meaning, even in the face of emptiness, uncertainty, and suffering, it is living with compassionate purpose. In Buddhism, the ultimate purpose of life is not simply to seek personal happiness or to escape suffering for ourselves. It is to awaken, to free ourselves from ignorance, and to help others do the same. This is why compassion is not just an emotion in Buddhist teaching. It is a way of being, a lens through which you see the world, a force that shapes your choices, your actions, and your presence in the lives of others. When you live with compassionate purpose, you stop asking, "What can I get from life?" and start asking, "What can I give to life?" And in that simple shift, everything changes. Many people misunderstand compassion as mere pity or soft-hearted kindness. True compassion is far deeper. It is the courage to open your heart to the pain of others without turning away, the willingness to act to alleviate that pain, even when it's uncomfortable, inconvenient, or costly. It is an active force, not a passive feeling. In Buddhist practice, compassion, karuna, is inseparable from wisdom. Without wisdom, compassion can be misguided. Without compassion, wisdom can be cold and detached. Together, they form the foundation for a life of deep purpose. When life feels meaningless, one of the most powerful ways to rediscover meaning is to stop living solely for yourself. Self-absorption magnifies emptiness because the self is a fragile, ever-changing construct. It is never fully satisfied. But when you turn your attention outward, when you see the struggles, hopes, and dreams of others, you step into a much larger story. You realize that your existence can be a source of light, healing, and hope for someone else. And here's the beautiful paradox. By helping others, you inevitably help yourself. By lifting others, you rise too. Living with compassionate purpose does not necessarily mean dedicating your life to grand humanitarian missions, although for some it may. It begins with the smallest acts of everyday kindness, listening fully when someone speaks, offering a helping hand without expecting anything in return, forgiving someone who has hurt you, being patient with those who are struggling. It could be as simple as smiling at a stranger who looks burdened or quietly supporting a friend who feels alone. These small moments may seem insignificant, but to the person receiving them, they can be life-changing. And for you, they are bricks in the foundation of a meaningful life. In Buddhism, this is often expressed through the bodhisattva ideal. A bodhisattva is one who seeks enlightenment not just for their own liberation, but for the liberation of all beings. They vow to walk the path of wisdom and compassion together, knowing that the well-being of each person is interconnected with the well-being of all. This is not an abstract philosophy. It is a daily practice of seeing your life as inseparably linked to the lives around you. When you embody this, even the most ordinary tasks become sacred because they are infused with the intention to benefit others. Another reason compassionate purpose gives life meaning is that it transcends the fleeting nature of personal achievements and pleasures. Material success, fame, beauty, and recognition all fade with time. But the love you give, the lives you touch, the kindness you show, these ripple outward endlessly. You may never see the full impact of your compassionate actions, but they continue to shape the world long after you are gone. In a world where so much is uncertain, this is one of the few ways to create something truly lasting. Compassion also transforms how you see yourself. Many people struggle with self-worth because they measure it by comparison, how they stack up against others in wealth, beauty, intelligence, or success. But when you live with compassionate purpose, your worth is not measured by what you have. It is measured by what you give. You begin to see yourself not as a fixed identity to be defended or proved, but as a vessel through which kindness and wisdom can flow. This shift frees you from the exhausting need to constantly prove your value, because your value is found in your intention to serve. Of course, living with compassionate purpose is not without its challenges. The world is full of suffering, and it is easy to feel overwhelmed by the sheer scale of it. This is why Buddhist practice teaches skillful compassion. You cannot pour from an empty cup. You must care for your own mind and heart so that your compassion does not lead to burnout. Mindfulness, meditation, and self-reflection keep you grounded, helping you give from a place of genuine strength rather than obligation or guilt. And here is where the Buddhist perspective becomes especially profound. Compassion is not something you have to force into existence. It is your natural state when the noise of ego and fear quiets down. Underneath all the defenses and distractions, the human heart naturally wants to connect, to care, to relieve suffering. The more you let go of self-centered fears and desires, the more your compassion flows freely. It is not something you create, it is something you uncover. Living with compassionate purpose also means extending your compassion beyond your immediate circle. It is easy to care for those we like, those who agree with us, those who make us feel good. But the real test of compassion is how we treat those who challenge us, those who differ from us, those who have hurt us. The Buddha taught that hatred is never overcome by hatred, only by love. This is not a sentimental idea. It is a practical truth. Hatred perpetuates suffering, while compassion breaks the cycle. To live with compassionate purpose is to meet even your enemies with the recognition that they, too, are struggling, that they, too, wish for happiness, and that they, too, suffer from ignorance and fear. Ultimately, compassionate purpose gives you a reason to wake up each day, even when life feels heavy. It anchors you in something greater than yourself. Something that makes every moment meaningful, no matter what else is happening in your life. Even if you are struggling personally, you can still bring comfort to someone else. Even if you feel lost, you can still help another find their way. And in doing so, you find yourself again. So if life feels empty, if you are searching for meaning, start here. Ask yourself each morning, how can I be of benefit today? Let that question guide your actions, whether in small or great ways. Trust that each act of compassion, no matter how small, is a thread in the great tapestry of human connection. Over time, these threads weave a life that is rich with purpose, a life that leaves the world a little better than you found it. In the end, compassionate purpose is not just a path, it is the path. It is the way you turn emptiness into fullness, isolation into connection, and suffering into love. It is the way you live so that, when you look back, you can say with quiet certainty, my life mattered, not because of what I took, but because of what I gave. And when you live this way, you will discover that even in a world that often feels meaningless, your life can be an unshakable source of meaning, not only for yourself, but for everyone you touch. 8. Walk the path every day. Finding purpose is not a one-time revelation. It is not something you stumble upon one morning and then carry effortlessly for the rest of your life. Purpose is a living, breathing thing. It must be nurtured, revisited, and renewed daily. Just like a plant needs sunlight and water to thrive, your sense of meaning needs consistent care. This is where most people struggle. They might have moments of clarity, deep insights during a retreat, or a burst of inspiration after reading a book or hearing a talk. But when life settles back into its daily routines, when responsibilities and distractions crowd in, the clarity fades and they feel lost again. Buddhism teaches us that the way to keep your purpose alive is not through occasional grand gestures, but through steady, mindful walking on the path every single day. The mistake many people make is thinking that purpose has to be something huge and world-changing in an obvious way. Becoming a famous teacher, starting a global charity, or writing a groundbreaking book. These things can be meaningful, yes, but they are not the only ways to live a purposeful life. In fact, for most of us, our greatest purpose will be found not in rare, dramatic moments, but in how we show up in the ordinary ones. The way you speak to someone when you're tired. The way you treat people who can do nothing for you. The way you respond to disappointment, success, or failure. The way you handle small temptations or frustrations when no one else is watching. Buddhism often speaks of the middle way, the path that avoids the extremes of indulgence and self-denial, the path of balance and steadiness. This applies not just to spiritual practice, but to purpose as well. If you think of purpose as a single towering goal you must achieve, you will either exhaust yourself chasing it or feel crushed if you fall short. But if you think of purpose as a direction you walk in, step by mindful step, you realize that every day, every action, every choice can either bring you closer to living in alignment with that purpose or take you further away. And here's the beauty. You don't need to have everything figured out to walk in the right direction. You just need to keep moving. Walking the path every day also means integrating your purpose into all areas of your life, rather than separating it from them. Many people compartmentalize. They might be compassionate and mindful at a meditation retreat, but impatient and reactive at work. They might feel connected to others while volunteering, but indifferent to the struggles of their neighbors. But real purpose is not something you turn on in certain settings. It's a way of being that flows into every part of your life. If your purpose is compassion, it should shape how you send an email, how you talk to the cashier at the grocery store, how you treat yourself when you make a mistake. If your purpose is truth, it should guide the way you speak, the way you listen, and the way you choose your commitments. This is why mindfulness is so essential. Without mindfulness, we live on autopilot, reacting to life based on old habits, moods, or impulses. Days blur together, and before we know it, months or years have passed without us consciously living our purpose. Mindfulness wakes us up to the present moment and reminds us, this is the moment to live my purpose. Not tomorrow, not when conditions are perfect, not when I have more time or money, but now. When you bring mindfulness into your daily life, even the most routine activities become opportunities to practice living your purpose. Washing the dishes can become an act of gratitude for the food you ate. Walking to work can become an exercise in awareness and presence. Waiting in line can become a moment to silently wish others well. But walking the path every day also means facing the days when you feel disconnected from your purpose, when the motivation just isn't there. These moments are inevitable. No one walks the path with perfect energy and clarity every single day. This is why in Buddhism we speak of discipline, not as a form of harshness, but as a form of love. Discipline means showing up for your purpose even when you don't feel like it. It means making time for your meditation practice even when you're busy, speaking kindly even when you're in a bad mood, or choosing patience even when frustration seems easier. This steady, faithful returning to your purpose, even imperfectly, is what builds a life rooted in meaning. It's also important to realize that your purpose will evolve as you do. What feels deeply meaningful to you at 20 might not be the same at 40 or 60. Life will present you with new challenges, new roles, and new opportunities for service. As you grow, your purpose will grow with you. This is why walking the path every day requires openness. Openness to change, openness to letting go of old dreams that no longer fit, and openness to embracing new ones that call to you. Just as a river flows and shifts over time, so too does a life of purpose. One of the most powerful ways to keep your purpose alive is to surround yourself with people who encourage and support it. Buddhism places great emphasis on Sangha, a community of like-minded practitioners walking the path together. Alone, it's easy to lose focus. With a supportive community, you are reminded of your higher intentions, challenged to grow, and inspired by the example of others. Your Sangha doesn't have to be a formal group. It could be a few close friends, a mentor, or even an online community dedicated to living mindfully and compassionately. What matters is that you are not walking alone. And here is perhaps the deepest truth. Walking the path every day is not about reaching some distant destination where life finally makes sense forever. It's about realizing that the path itself is the purpose. The meaning is not only in the grand achievements or in the final outcome, it's in the daily practice of aligning your actions with your values, of showing up with integrity, of being present for your life as it unfolds. This is why in Zen they say, there is no path to happiness. Happiness is the path. The same is true for purpose. When you understand this, you stop waiting for life to begin when you reach a certain goal or milestone. You stop thinking, once I have this job, this relationship, this amount of money, then I'll live with purpose. You start living it now, in this moment, with what you have, where you are. You start recognizing that the smile you give today, the patience you show today, the courage you find today, these are not small things. They are the path. So, how do you walk the path every day? You begin by remembering your values each morning and asking, how will I embody these today? You bring mindfulness to your smallest actions, knowing they are as important as your largest ones. You practice discipline, showing up for your purpose even when you don't feel inspired. You allow your purpose to evolve as you grow. You connect with others who share your commitment. And above all, you stop waiting for the big moment to live your purpose. You live it now, in the only moment you ever truly have, this one. If you do this, if you commit to walking your path every day, you will find that even when life feels uncertain, even when you don't have all the answers, there is a quiet steadiness in your heart. You will know that you are living in alignment, that your days are not being wasted, that you are moving in the direction of what matters most. And in that quiet certainty, you will discover something profound. Meaning is not something you find once and keep forever. It is something you create moment by moment, step by step, breath by breath as you walk the path. 9. Transcend the self. Become one with life. The deepest meaning you will ever find in life does not come from achieving your dreams, reaching your goals, or even discovering your personal calling. These are all meaningful in their own way, but they are still bound to the small, separate self, the I that is always trying to prove itself, defend itself, and secure itself against the vast uncertainty of existence. As long as your purpose is centered solely on this small self, it will always be fragile. It will always depend on circumstances going your way, on people recognizing you, on conditions staying favorable. The moment life throws you a curveball, an illness, a loss, a betrayal, or a collapse of everything you've worked for, your sense of purpose can crumble. Buddhism invites us to go deeper, beyond the self, beyond the ego, into a meaning so vast and unshakable that nothing in this world can destroy it. This is the meaning that comes when you transcend the self and realize your oneness with all of life. The Buddha taught that the sense of a separate, independent self is an illusion. Not in the sense that you don't exist at all, but in the sense that the you cling to is not fixed, solid, or separate from the rest of the universe. Every cell in your body comes from the earth, fed by the sun and nourished by the rain. Your breath is the same air that flows through the trees and the oceans. Your thoughts are shaped by languages, cultures, and histories that existed long before you. Even your sense of individuality is the product of countless relationships, influences, and interactions. You are not an isolated point in the universe. You are a wave in the vast ocean of being. When you begin to truly see this, not just as an idea, but as a felt reality, your whole relationship with life changes. You stop asking only, "What do I want from life?" and start asking, "How can I flow with life?" The boundaries between you and others begin to soften. You feel a deeper sense of belonging because you are no longer trying to stand apart from the world. You are part of it, inseparable from it. And here's the incredible paradox. The more you dissolve the rigid sense of self, the more free and alive you feel. You stop being a prisoner of your own story, your own fears, your own expectations. This is not about erasing your personality or denying your uniqueness. Rather, it is about shifting your identity from the small, fearful self to the larger field of life itself. You still have your personal dreams, your personal preferences, your personal path, but you no longer mistake them for the whole truth of who you are. You see them as expressions of something much greater, and when they change, when they end, when they fall apart, you do not fall apart with them. From this perspective, purpose is not something you manufacture to give your life meaning. Purpose is something you uncover by aligning yourself with the flow of life itself. Just as a river does not need to decide where to flow, it naturally follows the contours of the earth. So too does your deepest purpose reveal itself when you stop forcing and start attuning. This is why Buddhist practice places so much emphasis on stillness, meditation, and mindful awareness. These are not just techniques for relaxation, they are ways of tuning your inner being to the frequency of life itself. In the quiet, you begin to feel the subtle currents that are always guiding you, toward people who need you, toward work that lights you up, toward challenges that will grow you. Transcending the self also transforms your relationship to suffering. When you see yourself as a separate, fragile self, suffering feels like a personal attack. Why is this happening to me? But when you see yourself as part of the larger flow, suffering is no longer an isolated punishment. It is part of the universal human experience, part of the cycle of birth, growth, loss, and renewal that touches all beings. You realize that the same waves that bring joy also bring sorrow, and that both are expressions of the same vast ocean of life. This doesn't make pain disappear, but it makes it easier to hold, because you know it's not just yours to bear. You are part of something greater, and that something is holding you too. Another profound gift of transcending the self is that it releases you from the endless chase for validation. So much of what we call purpose in the modern world is really about seeking approval, wanting to be admired, respected, remembered. But when you live from the truth of your oneness with life, you no longer need the world to confirm your worth. Your worth is not up for debate. It is not something you earn. It is intrinsic, woven into the fabric of existence itself. You are valuable simply because you are part of life. Just as the sun, the trees, and the rivers are valuable, not because they achieve anything, but because they are expressions of the whole. From this place, your actions become more effortless and authentic. You are no longer acting to prove something or to get something in return. You are acting because it is the natural expression of your being. A tree does not try to grow, it simply grows. The sun does not try to shine, it simply shines. And you, once freed from the prison of the small self, can simply live your truth. This is the essence of Wu Wei in Taoist teaching. Action without forcing, doing without straining. In Buddhism, it is living in harmony with the Dharma, the natural law of reality. This level of purpose is unshakable because it is not tied to any one outcome. You may succeed or fail, be praised or criticized, gain or lose, but your sense of meaning is untouched. You are not living for the applause. You are living in the deep, knowing that your life is an expression of something vast and timeless. This is why the great Buddhist masters could remain serene even in the face of poverty, exile, or death. Their purpose was not dependent on circumstances. It was rooted in the truth of being itself. Of course, transcending the self is not a one-time switch you flip. It is a gradual unfolding, a deepening awareness that grows as you practice. You begin by noticing the ways your ego clings to identities, to possessions, to opinions, to the need to be right. You soften these clings, little by little. You open your heart to others, not just in moments of comfort, but in moments of conflict. You learn to see the humanity in those you once dismissed or despised. You meditate not to escape life, but to merge with it more fully. And slowly, the walls of separation begin to crumble. When you reach this place, you realize something extraordinary. The question, "What is the purpose of my life?" no longer haunts you in the same way, because you see that your life is the purpose, not in some grand cosmic sense you have to solve like a puzzle, but in the living, breathing reality of each moment. Your purpose is to be fully here, fully alive, fully awake, to let life move through you and to participate in the great dance of existence with your whole being. And here's the final, liberating truth. You do not have to wait until you have fully transcended the self to live from this place. You can begin now with whatever glimpses of connection, openness, and presence you have. You can practice softening the boundaries of me and mine in the way you speak, the way you listen, the way you care. You can choose to see your life not as a possession to be controlled, but as a gift to be shared. And the more you live this way, the more you will find that meaning is not something you need to search for. It is something that has been here all along, waiting for you to notice it. 10. Live as the witness, the freedom beyond meaning and meaninglessness. There comes a point in every seeker's journey where they realize that the search for purpose, noble and transformative as it can be, is still a search within the realm of the mind. The mind wants a story, a label, a goal to hold on to, something it can point to and say, "This is why I exist. This is what makes my life valuable." We build these stories from childhood, to be loved, to succeed, to help others, to create, to win. They guide us, motivate us, and at times save us from despair. But if you walk this path far enough, if you peel back the layers of identity, role, and desire, you will find yourself standing in a vast, open space where even the idea of purpose begins to dissolve. Here, there is no urgent need to be something, to become something, to justify your existence. This is the place of the witness, the silent awareness that is always here, before and beyond every story. In Buddhism, this is sometimes called the pure mind, Buddha nature, or simply awareness. It is not a distant, mystical state reserved for saints and sages. It is the silent knowing at the core of your being that has been watching your entire life unfold. You have felt it in quiet moments, sitting by a window, watching the rain, lying on your back, staring at the stars, holding the hand of someone you love in silence. In those moments, your identity fades into the background, your worries and plans pause, and there is simply the raw, luminous presence of now. You are not trying to make sense of life. You are simply witnessing it, and in that witnessing there is a peace beyond understanding. The great paradox is that when you live as the witness, you are free from the tyranny of both meaning and meaninglessness. You no longer need to find a grand reason to exist, nor are you crushed by the idea that life has no fixed meaning. You begin to see that meaning is something the mind creates, a lens through which we view the raw, infinite reality of existence. It's like a painter choosing colors for a canvas. The colors can be beautiful, inspiring, and deeply moving, but they are not the canvas itself. The canvas, the pure space of awareness, remains no matter what picture is painted upon it. This shift is profound because it liberates you from one of the deepest fears human beings carry, the fear that your life might not matter. When you live as the witness, you see that your existence matters simply because it is. You are part of the unfolding of life, inseparable from the totality of the cosmos. The tree does not ask if it matters, the river does not question its worth. They simply express the truth of what they are, and in that effortless expression, they are perfect. You too are perfect in the same way, not because you meet a standard or achieve a dream, but because you are a living expression of the great whole. From this vantage point, even suffering takes on a different dimension. As the witness, you can experience pain fully. You feel it in the body, in the heart, but you also see it from a deeper place that is untouched by it. Imagine sitting on the bank of a river, watching the current flow by. The water may be turbulent, carrying branches and debris, even rushing dangerously fast. But you are not in the river, you are watching it. This doesn't make the river less real, but it gives you a different relationship to it. In the same way, when you are the witness, your thoughts, emotions, and experiences still happen, but they do not define you. You are the space in which they arise, the sky in which the weather moves. This is why Buddhist meditation is such a radical and life-changing practice. On the surface, it might seem like just sitting, but in truth, it is the training ground for awakening as the witness. When you sit quietly, close your eyes, and observe your breath, you begin to notice that thoughts come and go on their own. You do not choose them. They simply appear. The same is true for emotions, sensations, and images. They arise, stay for a while, and fade. And the more you watch, the more you see that there is something in you that does not come and go, the awareness that is noticing all of this. That awareness is not anxious, not hurried, not lacking. It does not need life to be a certain way in order to be at peace. As you deepen into this awareness, your relationship to purpose becomes spacious and flexible. You may still have goals, dreams, and causes you care about, but you hold them lightly. You pour your heart into them, yet you are not shattered when they change or end. You can take action without desperation, love without clinging, give without expecting return. This is a deeper kind of freedom, because your sense of worth and direction is no longer at the mercy of external events. Living as the witness also transforms how you relate to others. When you are locked in the small self, you tend to see others through the lens of your needs, fears, and judgments. You measure them against your expectations and filter them through your own story. But as the witness, you see them as they are, fellow expressions of the same living awareness. You begin to feel a quiet reverence for every person you meet, not because they fit into your plans, but because they are part of the great mystery of life unfolding before you. Conversations become deeper, listening becomes easier, compassion arises naturally. And here's something beautiful. When you live this way, you often find that a sense of purpose arises on its own, without you forcing it. You begin to notice subtle invitations from life. A person who needs your help, a skill you feel drawn to develop, a cause that stirs your heart. These invitations feel different from the restless chasing of the ego. They have a quality of inevitability, as if they are flowing toward you rather than you running after them. You follow them not because you're trying to manufacture meaning, but because they feel like the natural next step in the dance you're already part of. This is where purpose becomes play. You are no longer trying to prove yourself or fill a void. You are playing your role in the great drama of existence with the freedom of an actor who knows it's a play. You can commit fully to your part, give it your all, and still bow gracefully when the scene changes. And because you are not clinging to the role, you can enjoy it more deeply. You can take risks, explore, create, and love without the fear that it will all be meaningless in the end, because you see that meaning was never the point. The point was to live. In the end, The witness shows you that life is not a puzzle to be solved, but a song to be sung, a dance to be danced. Purpose is not a fixed destination you must discover before you can relax. It is the ongoing, unfolding expression of your being in harmony with the whole. And when you live as the witness, even the emptiness you once feared becomes a friend. It is no longer a void to escape, but the open space in which all of life's beauty can arise. So how do you begin living as the witness? Start small. Throughout your day, pause for just a moment and notice what is happening without trying to change it. Feel your breath moving in and out. Notice the play of light in the room. Hear the sounds around you without labeling them as good or bad. Watch your thoughts appear and disappear like clouds drifting across the sky. The more you practice, the more you will feel the quiet stability of the witness beneath the noise of the mind. Over time, this presence will become your home. And when you live from that home, something miraculous happens. Whether life feels meaningful or meaningless, you are at peace. You no longer need to cling to one or fear the other. You are free. Free to create meaning when it feels right. Free to let go of meaning when it fades. Free to live each moment as a complete expression of life itself. And in that freedom, you may just discover that the secret to finding purpose in a meaningless life is this. Stop searching for purpose as if it were somewhere else, and start living as the awareness in which every purpose and every moment already unfolds. 11. Let life live through you, surrendering to the flow of existence. There comes a moment on the path when all your searching, questioning, and striving begins to feel like trying to push a river uphill. You have read, meditated, analyzed, and wrestled with the great questions of existence. Why am I here? What is the purpose of my life? How do I make my days meaningful in a world that seems indifferent? You have tried to answer these questions with goals, achievements, relationships, and spiritual practice. And yet, deep down, there remains a quiet knowing. None of these fully satisfy. They may inspire for a time, but like footprints in the sand, the tide of life eventually washes them away. What remains is the same vast, open mystery you started with. And here, at this threshold, Buddhism whispers its most paradoxical secret. Stop trying to master life, and let life master you. This is the lesson of surrender. Not surrender in the sense of defeat, where you give up because you've lost, but surrender in the sense of alignment, where you stop resisting the nature of reality and allow yourself to flow with it. For most of us, life feels like a battle because we are constantly fighting its basic truth, that it is impermanent, unpredictable, and uncontrollable. We cling to the illusion that if we can just figure out the right plan, hold the right beliefs, and stay disciplined enough, we will finally lock life into a shape we can trust. But life is not meant to be locked. It is a river, and rivers are meant to flow. When you resist this flow, you exhaust yourself. You tighten against reality. You become like a swimmer thrashing in the current, wasting your strength, panicking that you are not in control. But when you surrender to the current, something remarkable happens. You find that it carries you. You still swim. You still participate in your own journey. But you do so with the rhythm of the river, not against it. You begin to trust that the river knows where it is going, even if you cannot see beyond the next bend. This is not passivity. It is the most intelligent form of action, action that is in harmony with the deeper intelligence of life. In Buddhist practice, surrender is often expressed as letting go. Letting go of expectations, letting go of rigid plans, letting go of the idea that you must define yourself once and for all. Letting go of the fear that if you are not constantly in control, everything will collapse. But here is the beautiful truth. When you let go, life does not collapse. It opens. New paths appear. Unexpected encounters change you. Hidden strengths emerge. Opportunities you could never have forced into existence seem to fall into your lap. And perhaps most importantly, you stop feeling like life is something you must conquer and start feeling like it is something you can dance with. Imagine standing in a forest as a storm passes through. The tall, rigid trees that refuse to bend are the ones that break. The supple branches, the flexible reeds, the grass that bows to the wind, these are the ones that survive and flourish. The same is true for you. If you cling too tightly to your idea of how life should be, you will snap under the weight of its storms. But if you can bow, bend, and move with the wind, you will not only survive, you will grow stronger, wiser, and freer. This surrender is not the end of purpose. It is the gateway to a deeper one. Because when you stop trying to impose your will on life, you begin to notice the ways life is trying to express itself through you. You see, you are not separate from the great unfolding of existence. You are a unique expression of it, like a wave in the ocean. The wave does not have to invent the ocean's movement. It simply rides it. And in riding it, the wave expresses its own beauty, rising, cresting, falling, and returning to the whole. In the same way, when you let life live through you, you discover that your purpose is not something you have to create from scratch. It is already there, waiting to be expressed in your thoughts, words, and actions. This is why in Zen, the simplest acts, drinking tea, sweeping the floor, walking through the garden, can be acts of profound purpose. They are done in full presence, in harmony with the moment, without the constant background noise of, what does this mean? Is this important enough? Will this make my life significant? In these moments, you are not living for some distant purpose. You are living the purpose of now. And paradoxically, when you live this way, the arc of your life naturally aligns with deeper meaning. Because each step is taken in truth, in harmony, in authenticity. The mind, of course, will protest. It will say, but if I stop pushing, I'll stagnate. If I stop controlling, I'll drift into nothingness. If I stop chasing meaning, I'll be left with emptiness. But this is the same mind that has been exhausting you for years, the same mind that believes constant tension is the only way to survive. What it cannot yet see is that surrender is not stagnation. It is transformation. It is the difference between a bird flapping desperately to stay aloft and a bird spreading its wings to ride the wind. One is exhausting, the other is effortless. When you let life live through you, you stop asking, what is my purpose, in the abstract. Instead, you begin to live in the questions life is asking you in this moment. Maybe life is asking you to care for someone. Maybe it is asking you to create something. Maybe it is asking you to rest, to heal, to listen. Maybe it is asking you to step into discomfort and grow. Your purpose shifts and changes with the seasons of your life, but the thread that runs through it all is the willingness to say yes to what is here. This way of living also dissolves the fear of making the wrong choice. When you are living in harmony with the flow, there are no wrong choices, only experiences that shape you. Some will be joyful, others painful, but all will be part of the unfolding of your path. Even mistakes become teachers. Even detours become part of the destination. You no longer waste energy regretting the past or fearing the future, because you trust that the river is carrying you exactly where you need to go. And perhaps the most profound gift of letting life live through you is the peace it brings. You stop being at war with yourself and the world. You stop measuring your worth by your productivity, your achievements, or the opinions of others. You begin to feel that your life matters simply because it is yours, because it is this unique, unrepeatable expression of the great mystery that brought you into being. And from this place, you can give yourself fully to the moment, whether that moment is grand or humble, joyful or painful, certain or uncertain. This is the secret the river teaches. You do not have to carry life on your shoulders. Life is already carrying you. The more you trust this, the lighter you become. The more you release control, the more control you actually feel. Not over the externals, but over your own peace, your own state of being. And when your inner state is free, the outer world becomes less threatening, less urgent, less binding. You are free to act, to love, to create, without the desperate need to prove that it all means something, because the meaning is in the living itself. In the end, surrender is the highest form of strength. It is not resignation, and it is not laziness. It is the courage to stand in the open space between certainty and uncertainty, between meaning and meaninglessness, and say, I am here, I am part of this, I will let it flow through me. And when you live this way, you will find that the purpose you were searching for has been here all along, not in the stories your mind tells, but in the living, breathing reality of this moment. The river carries you, the wind moves you, and life itself becomes your purpose. Become the witness, discovering the freedom beyond your story. If you look closely at the way we live, you will notice something extraordinary. Almost every moment of our lives is spent inside a story our mind is telling. We are constantly narrating our lives, judging what is good or bad, predicting what might happen, replaying what has already happened, creating a running commentary on everything we experience. This narration is so constant, so habitual, that we hardly ever notice it. We mistake the story for reality itself, but Buddhism teaches something radical. The story is not the truth, and you are not the story. You are the awareness that sees it. This distinction is the key to unlocking freedom in a life that feels meaningless. Most people believe their suffering comes from life itself, from circumstances, events, losses, and disappointments. But if you examine it closely, you'll see that the deeper suffering comes from the story you tell about these things. Two people can face the same challenge, the same illness, the same failure, the same loss, and one will see it as a crushing tragedy, while the other sees it as a turning point, a doorway to growth. The event is the same, the story is different. The difference lies not in the world, but in the mind. The mind's stories are not inherently bad. They are part of how we make sense of life. But when you forget that they are stories, you become trapped in them. You identify so completely with the voice in your head that you cannot imagine yourself without it. You think, this is who I am. This is what my life means. And when the story is painful, I am worthless, I have failed, my life is meaningless, it feels like reality itself is collapsing around you. But the truth is, you are not collapsing. You are the witness to the collapse of a story. And when you recognize this, you discover a vast space of freedom you never knew was there. This is what Buddhist practice calls stepping back into awareness. Imagine sitting in a dark theater, watching a film on the screen. The film is so vivid, so emotional, that you forget you are sitting in a seat. You feel as if you are inside the story. But then something happens. Maybe the projector flickers, maybe you glance away, and suddenly you remember. I'm in a theater. I'm watching a movie. In that moment, the power the film had over you is broken. The images are still there, but you no longer believe they are reality. This is exactly what happens when you become the witness of your own mind. You step out of the trance of your story and into the clarity of awareness. From this place, meaninglessness itself begins to look different. You realize that the feeling of emptiness you've been struggling with is just another story, a pattern of thoughts and emotions you've been rehearsing for years. Life is meaningless is not an absolute truth. It is a lens you've been looking through. When you become the witness, you can hold that lens in your hand instead of seeing everything through it. And when you hold it, you can put it down. This is not to say that your challenges and pain are illusions that don't matter. They matter deeply, but they are part of a much larger field of awareness that cannot be touched by them. Awareness is like the open sky. Your thoughts, emotions, and experiences are like clouds passing through it. Some clouds are light and pleasant, others are dark and stormy, but the sky itself remains unchanged. No matter how many storms pass through, the sky is still the sky. In the same way, no matter how many stories pass through your mind, the awareness that you are remains untouched. When you begin to live from this awareness, something miraculous happens. You stop needing your story to be perfect in order to feel at peace. You no longer believe that you must fix your life before you can be whole. You realize that wholeness is already here, in the awareness itself. And from that wholeness, you can engage with life more freely, more playfully, more courageously, because you are no longer living to protect or defend a fragile story. In Buddhist meditation, one of the simplest yet most powerful practices is to silently repeat, "I am aware of this thought. I am aware of this feeling. I am aware of this story." This shifts your identity from being the character in the story to being the one who sees it. And once you are the seer, you cannot be trapped in the same way again. You may still get caught in stories for a time, but a part of you will always know, I am the awareness. I am the witness. Living as the witness does not mean becoming detached from life or refusing to feel emotions. On the contrary, it allows you to feel more deeply because you are not afraid of being destroyed by what you feel. You can grieve without drowning in grief. You can love without clinging. You can take risks without fearing total loss. Why? Because you know that no matter what happens in the story, the awareness that you are remains whole. This perspective also transforms your search for purpose. Instead of asking, "What is the perfect story I must live to give my life meaning?" you begin to ask, "How can I live this moment fully, knowing I am more than this moment?" Purpose stops being a distant ideal and becomes a quality of presence you bring to whatever is in front of you. Washing the dishes, holding a friend's hand, working on a project, walking through the rain. These become infused with meaning because you are fully present in them, not lost in past or future. And here is where the great paradox reveals itself. When you stop clinging to your story actually becomes richer, more meaningful, more beautiful. Because it is no longer driven by fear or the need to prove something. It becomes a natural expression of the awareness you are. Like a great river flowing from the mountains, your life finds its own way, winding through valleys, over rocks, under the open sky, and every twist and turn becomes part of its beauty. The witness does not erase the self, it frees the self. It allows you to see that you can play your role in life with full commitment, while knowing you are not limited to that role. You can be the parent, the friend, the artist, the teacher, the seeker, but you are also the awareness in which all these identities arise and pass away. And when one role ends, as all roles do, you do not lose yourself. You simply move into the next chapter, the next expression of the infinite awareness that you are. In the end, becoming the witness is not about escaping life. It is about entering it more fully. When you are no longer tangled in the stories of who you think you should be, you are free to be what you are. You can meet life as it is, without the filters of fear, expectation, or judgment. And in that meeting, you find a purpose that no story could ever contain, the purpose of being fully alive. And so, when life feels meaningless, remember this. Meaning is not something you find out there in the perfect storyline you've been chasing. It is here, in the simple fact of awareness itself. You are not the storm, you are the sky. You are not the story, you are the witness. And from that vast, unshakable place, you can live any story with grace and let each one go when its time has passed. Dissolve into the whole, remembering you were never separate. If you trace the feeling of meaninglessness to its root, you will almost always find the same wound, the belief that you are separate. Separate from others, separate from the world, separate from the flow of life. Somewhere along the way, you began to see yourself as an isolated fragment, moving through a vast and indifferent universe. You built an identity, a self-image, to navigate that separation, telling yourself, this is who I am, this is what I must do to survive, this is how I will matter. But no matter how carefully you build this self, there remains an ache, a whisper that says something is missing. That ache is not proof that life is meaningless. It is proof that you have forgotten your true nature. Buddhism has a word for this forgetting, avidya, often translated as ignorance. Not ignorance in the sense of lack of information, but ignorance of reality as it is. And reality, in its deepest truth, is not separation. Reality is interbeing. It is the understanding that nothing exists in isolation, that every life is woven into the fabric of all life, that your breath is the same breath the trees are exhaling, that the sunlight falling on your face traveled millions of miles just to meet you in this moment. You are not a lonely fragment moving through an empty space. You are a wave in the ocean of being, inseparable from the whole. The great paradox is that we spend so much of our lives trying to make our small self significant, when the deepest significance comes from dissolving the illusion of the small self altogether. This is not erasure. It is liberation. It is the recognition that you were never just this name, this body, this history, this role. You are the vast field of life itself, temporarily appearing as this person. And the purpose you have been searching for is not something you add to yourself like a decoration. It is something you uncover when you remember what you already are. Think of the moments when life has felt most alive, most real. They are almost always moments when you forgot yourself, when you were so absorbed in the beauty of a sunset, the depth of a conversation, the rhythm of a song, the stillness of meditation, that the voice of your inner narrator faded into the background. In those moments, you were not calculating your worth, not measuring your impact, not worrying about the future. You were simply being. You had stepped out of the prison of self-consciousness and into the boundless openness of life as it is. That openness is the doorway to meaning. The Buddha's teaching on anatta, no self, is often misunderstood as a cold denial of individuality. But in truth, it is a love letter to your deepest being. It says, "You are not limited to this story you've been telling yourself. You are not trapped in the skin of a separate self. You are the whole, and the whole is you." When you see this, the walls between self and world begin to dissolve. You feel the joy of others as your own joy, their pain as your own pain. Compassion stops being a moral duty and becomes a natural expression of your being. You care for others not because you should, but because they are you in another form. From this place, the question, "What is my purpose?" begins to change. It is no longer, "What can I achieve to prove I matter?" but "How can I serve the unfolding of life that I am part of?" You stop seeking meaning as a personal possession and start living meaning as a shared offering. The artist creates not to become famous, but because creation itself is an act of love. The teacher teaches not to gain status, but because knowledge longs to be shared. The healer heals not to be seen as good, but because the wound of another is felt as their own. Purpose becomes not a private treasure you guard, but a gift you pour into the world. And here is the great irony. When you stop clinging to your small self and open to the whole, you find that your individual life matters more than ever. Not because it is separate, but because it is a unique, unrepeatable expression of the whole. Just as every leaf is different yet part of the same tree, your life is one note in the infinite song of existence. Remove that note, and the song is not the same. This is not ego. This is reverence. Reverence for the fact that the universe is expressing itself as you, here, now, and will never do so in exactly the same way again. This realization is not something you grasp once and keep forever. It is something you return to again and again, like coming home after losing your way. The mind will pull you back into the trance of separateness, into the story that you are alone, that you must fight for your worth, that life is empty. But each time you remember, even for a breath, that you are part of the whole, the illusion loses a little of its grip. You begin to live more from connection than from isolation. You begin to trust the flow, not because you believe in it as an idea, but because you feel it moving through you. One of the simplest practices to awaken this remembering is to pause several times a day and sense the life that is here right now. Feel your breath, not as something you are doing, but as something happening effortlessly, sustained by forces far greater than your control. Feel your feet on the ground and remember that the ground is the earth, holding you without condition. Look at the sky and realize that the same sky is holding every living being you will ever meet. Let your senses remind you, you are not separate. You never were. This shift dissolves the fear of meaninglessness because you stop needing life to justify itself to your small self. You stop demanding that the universe answer your personal why before you can live. You live because life is living through you. You love because love is the nature of connection. You give because giving is the movement of the whole toward itself. And in this giving, you find the deepest fulfillment, not the fleeting high of achievement, but the steady joy of being aligned with reality. And perhaps most beautifully, this way of living heals the loneliness at the core of modern life. The loneliness that comes not from being alone, but from believing you are alone. When you see yourself in the smile of a stranger, in the flight of a bird, in the crash of the ocean waves, you realize that you are in constant communion. You belong to every moment, every place, every being. The world is no longer a backdrop to your private story. It is the living field you are part of. In the end, dissolving into the whole does not erase you. It reveals you. It reveals that the self you have been protecting and promoting was only a mask, a temporary role in the great play of existence. Behind that mask is the vast, luminous presence that has no edges, no boundaries, no separate name. That presence is your true nature, and it is the same presence that shines in every being. To live from this is to know a purpose that no loss, no failure, no emptiness can touch. So when life feels meaningless, remember, you are not a lost fragment in an empty universe. You are the universe, awake in this human form, here for a brief and precious moment. Let the walls fall, let the boundaries dissolve, let yourself be lived by the whole. And in that surrender, you will find the purpose you have been seeking all along, the purpose of being what you truly are, inseparable, infinite, and free. Live as the flow. When you stop forcing life, life starts living through you. There is a point in every seeker's journey when the struggle to find purpose begins to dissolve, not because the purpose has been neatly defined, but because the need to define it starts to lose its grip. This is the point where you begin to sense that life is not something you stand apart from, trying to figure out, but something you are inside of, something you are. The truth is, your purpose is not a riddle to be solved, but a river to be entered. The more you try to force the river to go in the direction you think it should, the more resistance you feel. But the more you let go, the more you discover that the river already knows the way, and has been carrying you all along. Buddhism calls this the understanding of suchness, tathata, the recognition that things are as they are. Life is not waiting for your permission to unfold, nor is it withholding meaning until you prove yourself worthy. The seasons turn, the sun rises, the moon waxes and wanes, the tides ebb and flow, all without your control. You are not the separate controller of life. You are an expression of its movement. When you live from this truth, you stop trying to dominate the flow and start harmonizing with it. In the modern world, we are taught the opposite. That meaning is something we wrestle from life through endless effort, ambition, and control. We are told to take charge, to create our destiny, to never let go. And while discipline, effort, and vision have their place when they are fueled by fear and the desperate need for control, they create more suffering than fulfillment. This is why so many people reach their goals only to feel empty again. They have been moving against the deeper current of their own life. They have been chasing an idea of purpose rather than living the truth of it. The way of the flow is not passivity. It is not sitting back and waiting for life to hand you everything. It is an active participation in reality, but without the friction of constant resistance. Imagine a skilled surfer. They are not passive. They are alert, alive, fully engaged. But they are not trying to push the wave. They are riding it. They feel the movement beneath them and adjust with grace, knowing that the wave itself is the true power. In the same way, when you align with the flow of life, you bring your full presence, skill, and heart to each moment. But you no longer live under the illusion that you are the master of the ocean. This shift requires a deep trust, a trust that life is intelligent in ways the mind cannot fully grasp. This is where Buddhist practice becomes so vital. In meditation, you begin to see that thoughts, emotions, and sensations arise and pass without your command. You see that breathing happens without you deciding to breathe. You see that the body heals cuts, grows cells, and digests food without you orchestrating the process. This is life living itself through you. And if life can handle the miracle of your heartbeat, perhaps it can also handle the unfolding of your path. When you stop forcing, you make space for the subtle signals of life to reach you. You begin to notice synchronicities, the unexpected encounters, the perfectly timed opportunities, the intuitive nudges that seem to appear out of nowhere. In truth, they were always there, but your constant pushing made you deaf to them. Living in the flow makes you receptive. You begin to see that your role is not to micromanage the universe, but to listen deeply and respond from presence. This is why so many great teachers say that purpose is not found in the mind, but revealed in the heart. The mind grasps, the heart receives. Letting go of forcing also frees you from the endless trap of comparison. When you believe you must construct your purpose entirely from scratch, you constantly measure yourself against others to see if you are doing it right. But when you realize you are part of the same river as everyone else, you understand that your path cannot look like anyone else's, and it doesn't need to. The river flows through many landscapes. Some parts are rushing rapids, some are wide and still, some are narrow and winding. Each section is essential to the journey. The stillness is not inferior to the rapids. It is simply a different expression of the same movement. From this perspective, even the seasons of your life that seem empty or directionless take on a new meaning. In the forcing mindset, emptiness is a sign of failure. In the flowing mindset, emptiness is a fertile field waiting to bloom in its own time. Winter does not accuse itself of being meaningless because it is not spring. It rests, nourishes, and prepares the ground. In the same way, the quieter seasons of your life are not wasted. They are the very soil in which your future growth will take root. Another transformation that happens when you live as the flow is that you stop clinging so tightly to specific outcomes. In forcing mode, your happiness is always conditional, tied to whether events match your exact blueprint. But in flowing mode, your happiness is rooted in the very act of living. You still have visions and desires, but you hold them lightly. You pursue them with dedication, but you allow them to change shape as life reveals more of the picture. And often what life brings you is far richer than what you could have imagined. This is where purpose becomes less of a fixed point on the horizon and more of a way of being in each moment. In forcing mode, purpose is a destination. In flowing mode, purpose is the journey itself. It is the way you show up for your work, your relationships, your challenges, your joys. It is in the quality of your attention, the sincerity of your actions, the openness of your heart. It is in saying yes to the reality that is here, even when it is not the reality you planned. There is also a profound humility in living as the flow. You begin to see that your life is not just your life. It is the result of countless causes and conditions, the actions of those who came before you, the gifts of the natural world, the support of unseen hands. Your breath right now is possible because of the trees and oceans producing oxygen. Your ability to walk through the world depends on the earth holding you up. Your capacity to learn comes from teachers, books, ideas, and experiences you did not create alone. This humility doesn't diminish you. It connects you more deeply to everything. It reminds you that you are both a giver and a receiver in the great exchange of existence. And when you truly feel this connection, a quiet reverence begins to color everything you do. You no longer rush through life as if it were a checklist. You walk slower, you listen more, you speak with greater care. You treat your time, your relationships, and your body with respect, not out of fear, but out of gratitude. You understand that every moment is part of the river, and the river is sacred. This reverence naturally guides you toward service. When you stop living only for your small self, you start living for the well-being of the whole. And this is where the deepest sense of meaning arises. The paradox is that when you stop trying to become someone, you become more fully yourself. And when you stop trying to make your mark, your life begins to leave a mark effortlessly, not through grand gestures, but through the quiet power of presence, kindness, and integrity. To live as the flow is to trust that your life, as it is unfolding right now, is not a mistake. Even the detours, the losses, the heartbreaks, they are not evidence of a meaningless life, but part of the river's intelligence. You may not always see where it is leading, but you can trust that it is leading somewhere. And even if you never discover a single, neatly packaged purpose, you will have lived with meaning, because meaning is not a final answer. It is the way you engage with the mystery. In the end, this is the secret. Stop trying to control the river and let the river carry you. Listen, respond, flow. Bring your whole self to each bend and current. Trust that you are exactly where you need to be to live the next moment well. And as you live this way, purpose will not be something you find. It will be something you are. If you want, I can now create the final conclusion that will pull together all 14 lessons into one seamless, moving ending. The kind that makes your audience feel they have reached the highest point of the journey and leaves them in awe. The art of living fully in the present. Because the present is all that ever holds meaning. There comes a moment in every journey of self-discovery when you realize that the thing you've been searching for, meaning purpose, a reason to wake up each day, has never been hiding in the far-off distance. It has always been here, woven into the very fabric of the moment you are living. But our minds, conditioned by years of chasing, are rarely here with us. They are time travelers, forever revisiting the past or rushing toward the future, rarely resting in the only place life actually happens, the present. Buddhism teaches that the present moment is not just another point in time, it is the only reality. The past exists only as memory, the future only as imagination. The present is the canvas where your life is painted, stroke by stroke, choice by choice, breath by breath. Why does this matter when we talk about finding purpose in a meaningless life? Because most of our suffering and our sense of meaninglessness comes from missing our own life while it's happening. We think our purpose will arrive someday when we've achieved something, earned enough, healed enough, or proven ourselves enough. We tell ourselves that now is just a waiting room, a prelude to the real life that will start when we reach our goals. But this mindset is the greatest thief of purpose. It postpones our joy. It turns our days into stepping stones toward a mirage. The present moment may seem too ordinary, too simple to hold the answers we seek. But look closely. Every meaningful experience you've ever had, every moment of love, laughter, or insight happened in the now. It did not happen in the future. It did not happen in the past. It happened when you were fully here. The tragedy is that we often experience these moments without recognizing their value until they're gone. And so we keep chasing the next thing, hoping it will give us what the last moment could have given us if we had only been present enough to receive it. To live fully in the present is not to abandon your dreams or ignore your responsibilities. It is to realize that your life is not in the dream. It is in the steps you take toward it. If you want a meaningful life, you must stop waiting for the big purpose to arrive and start living your small moments with depth, attention, and care. This is where Buddhism's emphasis on mindfulness becomes essential. Mindfulness is the art of returning again and again to what is happening right now, without judgment, without resistance, without the constant itch to be somewhere else. Think about how much energy you waste replaying old conversations, regretting past choices, worrying about what might happen tomorrow. This mental time travel pulls you away from the only time you can actually act, change, or experience joy now. When you learn to rest in the present, you reclaim that wasted energy and pour it into the life you are actually living. And here's the paradox. The more fully you live now, the more naturally your future unfolds with clarity and direction. Purpose is not built in some distant future, it is cultivated in the quality of your present moments. This way of living changes how you see even the most mundane parts of your day. Washing the dishes becomes an opportunity to feel the warm water, to notice the movement of your hands, to be grateful for the meal you just had. Walking to work becomes a chance to feel the air on your skin, to notice the rhythm of your steps, to connect with the life happening all around you. Every small action becomes a thread in the tapestry of a meaningful life. We miss this when we're too busy rushing to the important moments, not realizing that all moments are the important moments. But why is it so hard to stay present? One reason is that being here means feeling everything, not just the comfortable, pleasant emotions, but also the discomfort, the boredom, the grief. The past and future offer an escape from these feelings. We can numb ourselves with nostalgia or distract ourselves with fantasies. But true presence demands courage. It asks us to face reality as it is, not as we wish it to be. And this is where the profound beauty of Buddhism comes in. It teaches that everything, joy, pain, emptiness, fullness, is impermanent. When you realize that nothing lasts forever, you stop clinging so tightly to the good and stop fearing the bad. You begin to ride the waves of your experience instead of trying to control the ocean. Living fully in the present also dismantles the illusion that life must always be extraordinary to be meaningful. Modern culture sells us the idea that meaning is found in peak experiences, travel, success, fame, grand achievements. But this belief leaves most of our life, the ordinary days, feeling unimportant. The truth is, the ordinary is where life actually happens. A quiet morning, a shared meal, a kind word, a deep breath. These are the moments that form the foundation of your existence. When you can see the sacred in the ordinary, you are never without meaning. There is another reason presence is the key to purpose. It is the only place where love truly exists. You cannot love in the past. You cannot love in the future. Love is an act of attention, of being with someone or something fully, without distraction. Whether it's a conversation with a friend, playing with your child, caring for your partner, or simply appreciating a flower in bloom, love lives here, now. And when you live in love, you are living your highest purpose, no matter what your career title or achievements might be. Buddhism also reminds us that being present does not mean being self-absorbed. In fact, the opposite is true. When you are truly here, your awareness expands to include others. You notice their expressions, their needs, their unspoken emotions. You respond with empathy instead of autopilot reactions. Your relationships deepen because people can feel when you are truly with them. And these connections, more than any external success, are what make life meaningful. Another profound aspect of presence is that it strips away the false stories you've been telling yourself about who you are and what your life should be. The present moment does not care about your labels, your past failures, or your imagined limitations. It simply invites you to show up as you are, right now, and to live this moment fully. In doing so, you begin to loosen your identity's grip on you. You realize you are not your past. You are not your anxiety about the future. You are the awareness that is here, living this breath. And in that awareness, there is freedom. The practice of presence also teaches you the art of enough. In the future-focused mindset, nothing is ever enough. Not your income, your achievements, your possessions. There is always something more to chase. But when you are fully here, you realize that this moment contains everything you need to feel alive. This does not mean you stop growing or striving, but your growth is no longer driven by lack. It is driven by curiosity, creativity, and love. You create not to fill a void, but to express the fullness you already feel. Over time, living fully in the present transforms your relationship with time itself. You stop feeling like life is rushing past you because you are no longer lost in thoughts about somewhere else. Paradoxically, life feels richer, slower, more spacious. A single afternoon can feel as fulfilling as a week's vacation when you are truly present for it. And this sense of spaciousness is deeply healing in a world that constantly tells you there is not enough time. Perhaps the most liberating truth of all is this: the present moment is always here for you. No matter how much you've missed it in the past, you can return to it now. You don't have to wait until you've fixed your life, healed your wounds, or figured everything out. The doorway to presence is open in every breath, every step, every heartbeat. And each time you walk through it, you are living your purpose. Not in theory, but in reality. In the end, the present is not just where you find purpose. It is where purpose finds you. It is the meeting place between your life and your awareness. When you give yourself fully to this meeting, you discover that life has never been meaningless. It has always been here, waiting for you to arrive. And when you do, you will see that the search for purpose was never about finding something outside of you. It was about waking up to what has been here all along. If you want, I can now write lesson 16 at the same 17,000 character depth, but make it even more spiritually awakening than this one, so it feels like the final mastery of your journey, becoming the source of your own light, living as the meaning you once searched for. At some point on your journey of self-discovery, you realize something quietly revolutionary. You are no longer the same person who began searching for meaning. In the beginning, your search may have felt desperate, like wandering in a dark forest with no path, grasping for any signpost that could lead you out. You looked to books, teachers, philosophies, relationships, even achievements to hand you the answer. And while each may have given you pieces of the puzzle, there comes a moment when you see the truth. Meaning is not something to be found. It is something to be lived, something to be generated from within you. In Buddhism, this is a deep turning point, when the seeker becomes the source, when you stop chasing the light and realize you can become the light itself. What does it mean to become the source? It means your sense of purpose is no longer fragile, dependent on circumstances, praise, success, or even perfect clarity about your future. It means you have cultivated within yourself a steady flame that is not easily shaken by life's storms. You are no longer standing at the mercy of the winds, hoping they blow in your favor. You have learned to hold your center, to anchor your meaning in the unshakable ground of your own being. And this is not arrogance, it is freedom. One of the reasons so many people feel empty is because they've outsourced their meaning. They've placed it in the hands of a job title, a relationship, a social role, or the approval of others. The problem is that all these things are temporary and fragile. Jobs end, relationships change, roles shift, and people's opinions are as unstable as the weather. When you've built your sense of worth and purpose on these shifting sands, you are destined to feel lost when they inevitably change. But when you root your meaning in something that cannot be taken from you, your awareness, your values, your compassion, your ability to love and create, you become unshakable. In Buddhist teachings, there's a concept called taking refuge. Traditionally, it means taking refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, teachings, and the Sangha, community. But there's also a deeper, more personal meaning. You take refuge in your own awakened nature. You recognize that within you is an inexhaustible well of clarity, compassion, and courage. And when you live from this place, you are no longer scrambling to find meaning out there. You are radiating it from in here. Becoming the source of your own light doesn't mean you no longer experience pain, doubt, or confusion. Those are part of the human condition. The difference is that you no longer see them as proof that your life has no meaning. Instead, you see them as part of the rich texture of existence, as opportunities to deepen your connection with yourself and others. Pain no longer makes you collapse inward in despair. It makes you expand outward in understanding. Doubt no longer paralyzes you. It sharpens your clarity. Confusion no longer makes you feel lost. It reminds you that you are still growing. Think of the sun. The sun doesn't wait for the world to approve of it before it shines. It doesn't decide to hide behind the clouds forever just because some days are stormy. It keeps shining, regardless of how much of its light reaches the ground. Becoming the source of your own light means living in that same way, giving your presence, your love, your creativity, your kindness, without constantly calculating whether it's worth it or recognized. You live in alignment with your deepest values because that is who you are, not because it guarantees you a reward. This shift also transforms your relationship with emptiness. In the beginning, emptiness felt like a void to be feared, something to escape. But now you see it differently. Emptiness is not the absence of meaning, it is the absence of false meaning. It's the clearing away of all the illusions you once clung to so that you can see the truth. You are free to create meaning in every moment. It's like a blank page that is waiting for your ink, not a sentence handed down to you from someone else. And the more you write on that page with intention, the more your life feels like a work of art you are actively creating instead of a puzzle you are frantically trying to solve. When you live as the meaning, you stop expecting life to hand you a perfectly packaged purpose. You realize that purpose is fluid, alive, and ever-changing, just like you. Today, your purpose might be to create something beautiful. Tomorrow, it might be to care for someone who needs you. Next year, it might be to learn something entirely new. The point is that you are no longer paralyzed by the need for a single, fixed answer. You are engaged in the ongoing dance of giving and receiving meaning through how you live each day. And here's something profoundly freeing. When you live as the source of your own light, you also free others. People feel it when you no longer demand that they be the reason for your happiness. You stop putting the burden of your fulfillment on them. Instead, your presence becomes an offering, a steady warmth they can feel without needing to earn it. In relationships, this shifts everything. Love becomes freer, friendships become deeper, and connections become more authentic because they are not weighed down by unspoken expectations. Buddhism teaches the idea of the bodhisattva, someone who, upon awakening, chooses to help others awaken as well. Living as the meaning you once sought is, in a way, living as a bodhisattva in your own life. You don't just seek enlightenment for yourself. You naturally extend it to those around you through your kindness, your listening, your patience, your example. Your life itself becomes a lantern, quietly illuminating the paths of others without demanding recognition. This doesn't mean you never falter. There will be days when your inner light feels dim, when the world feels heavy, when you question everything. But because you've cultivated your own source, you know how to return to it. You know that your light is not extinguished, it is only resting. You learn to tend to it like a sacred fire, feeding it with moments of stillness, acts of kindness, creative expression, and mindful awareness. It also means that you no longer need life to be perfect in order for it to be meaningful. You stop waiting for all the conditions to align, the right job, the right partner, the right level of health or wealth. You understand that the meaning is in how you show up, not in what the scoreboard says. You can be in a small apartment or a grand house, in a season of abundance or of loss, and still live a life that feels profoundly rich, because the richness comes from you, not from the decorations around you. This way of living creates a deep inner peace that is not passive or indifferent, but quietly powerful. You may still strive for growth, still dream big, still work toward beautiful goals, but you do it from a place of fullness, not emptiness. You are no longer using your goals to patch a hole in your soul. You are using them as channels to express the light you already carry. And this changes everything. It turns life from a desperate hunt for validation into a joyful practice of creation. There's also a humility in living this way. You realize that your light is not something you own in an egoic sense. It's something you participate in. You are part of a larger web of life, and the more you share your light, the more it grows, not just in you, but in everyone you touch. And in this way, your purpose becomes infinite. It is no longer about reaching a final answer, but about being a living, breathing answer in the way you move through the world. And here's the quiet miracle. When you become the source, life no longer feels meaningless because you are no longer asking it to give you meaning. You are meeting it halfway, bringing your own light to the table. You are not waiting for the perfect script. You are co-writing it with life itself. This partnership with existence, this ongoing moment-by-moment collaboration, is where the deepest joy and purpose are found. So if you want to know the secret to finding purpose in a meaningless life, here it is. Stop looking for a pre-written purpose and start living as the meaning you once sought. Tend to your inner light. Anchor it in your values, your awareness, your compassion. Share it freely. And when the storms come, as they always will, remember that you are not just standing in the dark. You are the one carrying the lantern. If you want, I can now write Lesson 17 as the final, longest, most awakening chapter of all, where your audience walks away feeling not just inspired, but permanently shifted, as if the search for meaning has truly ended. Living in flow with the great river of life, when you and life are no longer separate. There comes a point in the search for meaning when you realize something extraordinary. The struggle itself was never against life. It was against your belief that you were separate from it. For years, maybe decades, you lived as though life was out there and you were in here, trying to reach it, shape it, and extract meaning from it like water from a stubborn well. You chased meaning as though it were a rare treasure hidden in the desert, when in truth, it was the river flowing right beneath your feet. But to drink from it, you had to stop running. You had to kneel down, cup your hands, and let it flow through you. This is the Buddhist understanding of living in flow, no longer forcing life to give you meaning, but moving as one with it, so naturally that meaning becomes the current you live in every day. To live in flow is to dissolve the artificial boundary between you and life. Most of our suffering comes from believing that life is something we control, own, or bargain with. We see ourselves as separate entities, small captains steering our ship through a dangerous ocean. But in truth, you are not just the captain, you are the ocean. The same life force that moves the seasons, that turns winter into spring, that makes rivers run and flowers bloom. That same energy is moving in you. You are not an outsider trying to negotiate with existence. You are an expression of existence itself. When you live with this awareness, the endless questioning of what is my purpose begins to dissolve. You stop hunting for meaning like a scavenger and begin living as meaning in motion. Think of a tree. It doesn't wake up in the morning wondering, what's my purpose? It simply grows toward the light, sends roots deep into the soil, bears fruit when the season comes, and rests when winter arrives. It participates fully in the dance of life without needing a scripted role. We humans, with our restless minds, have forgotten this natural rhythm. We've been taught to measure ourselves against artificial standards, productivity charts, wealth comparisons, societal checklists. And in doing so, we've drowned out the quiet voice that says, just live, and your meaning will reveal itself. Living in flow does not mean living without intention or ambition. On the contrary, your actions become more powerful, more effective, because they are no longer clogged with fear, resistance, or the desperate need for validation. You move with the river instead of thrashing against it. You take the opportunities that align with your values and let go of those that don't, without guilt or hesitation. You begin to trust that even detours, delays, and disappointments are part of the river's course, carrying you toward places you could never have imagined from the shore. Buddhism calls this trust faith in the Dharma, not blind faith in the sense of ignoring reality, but a deep, experiential knowing that life has its own intelligence. This intelligence is not always immediately obvious, and it rarely follows the timelines we prefer. But when you look back at your life, you can see moments when things fell apart only so something greater could come together. You remember times when not getting what you wanted turned out to be the greatest blessing. This is the Dharma at work, gently guiding you even when you thought you were lost. The reason so many people feel life is meaningless is because they've been taught to fight the river. We cling to rigid plans, demand specific outcomes, and panic when life bends in a different direction. We try to dam the flow, forgetting that meaning is not found in controlling life, but in participating with it. Imagine a kayaker in a wild river. If they fight the current, they exhaust themselves and risk capsizing. But if they learn to read the water, steer with it, and use its momentum, they travel faster, farther, and with far less strain. Life is the same. When you stop fighting, you stop suffering unnecessarily. Living in flow also changes your relationship with time. In the old way of living, you are always racing toward the weekend, toward retirement, toward some imaginary better point in the future where you think life will finally make sense. But when you live in flow, you understand that the present moment is the only place life ever truly happens. You stop treating the now as just a stepping stone to someday. You start asking, how can I fully live this moment? And in doing so, you discover that meaning is not waiting in the distance. It's here, right now, in the way you drink your tea, in the way you listen to a friend, in the way you walk down the street. Buddhist teachers often speak of mindfulness as the gateway to this way of living. Mindfulness is not just about paying attention. It's about paying attention without clinging or resisting. It's about seeing each moment as it is, without demanding that it be something else. When you're mindful, washing the dishes is no longer a meaningless chore. It's a chance to feel the warm water on your hands, to watch the bubbles rise and burst, to appreciate the quiet rhythm of an ordinary task. You realize that life is not hiding its meaning. You've just been too distracted to see it. In flow, even challenges take on a different meaning. You no longer see them as personal punishments, but as part of the river's shaping force. Just as rocks in a stream make the water sing, difficulties in life can refine you, deepen you, and teach you patience, humility, and strength. When a tree faces a harsh winter, it doesn't curse the cold. It uses the season to rest, to conserve energy, to prepare for new growth. Likewise, when life gives you a season of hardship, you can use it to turn inward, to realign, to gather wisdom that will serve you for years to come. One of the most profound shifts that happens when you live in flow is that your sense of self begins to soften. You start to see that the you've been defending and promoting all these years is not as solid as you thought. You are less concerned with proving yourself and more concerned with being yourself. You begin to notice that the moments you feel most alive are often the moments you forget yourself entirely. When you are so immersed in a task, a conversation or a sunset that the boundary between me and life disappears. These are the moments when you are truly free. In Buddhism, this is sometimes called non-self, not in the sense that you don't exist, but in the sense that you are not a fixed, separate entity. You are a dynamic process, an ever-changing expression of life's creativity. When you see this, you stop trying to pin down your identity like a specimen in a glass case. You allow yourself to evolve, to flow, to become new versions of yourself as naturally as a river bends and changes course. This freedom also liberates you from comparison. You no longer measure your worth against someone else's path because you understand that every river has its own terrain, its own pace, its own destination. You stop envying someone else's smooth waters because you know that your rapids, your twists and turns are part of what makes your journey uniquely rich. You no longer feel behind because you trust that your river is carrying you exactly where you need to go. Living in flow also transforms the way you relate to others. You become less interested in controlling people and more interested in connecting with them. You stop trying to make them flow your way and start appreciating the beauty of their own current. Relationships become less about possession and more about mutual support, less about fixing each other and more about traveling together, even if only for part of the journey. And perhaps most beautifully, living in flow gives you a deep sense of belonging. You no longer feel like a stranger in your own life. You recognize that you are part of something vast and mysterious, something that existed long before you were born and will continue long after you are gone. You see that your life, with all its joys and sorrows, is one unique ripple in the great river of existence. And instead of feeling small in the face of that truth, you feel honored to be part of it. This is the secret. The meaning you were searching for was never hidden in some far-off destination. It was always in the way you meet each moment. It was in your willingness to let go of control, to trust the current, to live as an active participant in the unfolding mystery of life. You don't have to have it all figured out. You don't need a perfect map. You just need to keep showing up, keep paddling, keep flowing, and the river will carry you exactly where you need to be. So if you are standing on the shore right now, afraid to step in because you don't know where the river leads, remember this: you don't have to know. The river knows. And when you trust it, when you let it carry you, you will see that you were never lost. You were always home. The art of becoming the witness. Freedom through seeing, not chasing. There is a quiet power in life that most people never discover because they are too busy running after meaning, running from pain, running toward goals, running away from themselves. They believe that the purpose of life lies somewhere far ahead, in the next achievement, the next relationship, the next personal transformation. But in Buddhism, the deepest secret is that the meaning of life is not found in running. It is found in watching. Not watching as a passive bystander, but watching with the awareness of one who knows they are not the storm, they are the sky. This is the art of becoming the witness, and it changes everything. Most of us live as though we are trapped inside our own thoughts and emotions. If we feel sadness, we say, "I am sad," and we believe that sadness defines us in that moment. If we feel angry, we say, "I am angry," and we see the world through that anger. This identification is like standing in the middle of a raging river, being tossed and spun around by the current, believing that you are the water. But the witness steps onto the riverbank. The witness sees the current, feels its pull, acknowledges its power, but remains free from being swept away. When you become the witness, you begin to see that your thoughts are not who you are. They are clouds passing across the sky of your awareness. Some are light and fluffy, harmless in their drifting. Others are dark and heavy, carrying storms. But no matter how they appear, they are still just passing through. The witness knows, I am not the cloud. I am the sky. This realization brings an incredible lightness because it means you are no longer at the mercy of every thought, mood, or emotional storm that moves through your mind. Why is this so important for finding meaning in a life that feels empty? Because emptiness is often nothing more than misidentified awareness. You think you are the emptiness, so you feel consumed by it. You think you are the loneliness, so you feel crushed by it. You think you are the anxiety, so you believe life itself is broken. But when you witness these feelings instead of identifying with them, you realize that emptiness is simply a space in which you can create, a space in which clarity can arise, a space in which meaning can grow naturally without being forced. Buddhism teaches that suffering is born from attachment, not just attachment to things and people, but attachment to ideas about who we are and what life must be. We cling to the image of ourselves as someone who must always be happy, productive, successful, and certain. When reality does not match this image, we panic. The witness, however, does not cling. The witness observes. And in observing, the witness learns that no state of mind is permanent. Sadness changes, joy changes, motivation changes, emptiness changes. Everything is in motion, like the river. When you know this in your bones, you stop being so desperate to hold on to what is pleasant or push away what is painful. You let life flow. This is where the real freedom begins. When you are the witness, you no longer measure life only by how pleasurable it feels in the moment. You begin to see meaning in simply being alive, in watching the great play of existence unfold through you and around you. The rising of the sun, the breath in your lungs, the stillness between heartbeats. These become meaningful, not because they lead to some grand result, but because they are life itself, and you are here to witness it. Think about the last time you truly watched a sunset. Not glanced at it while scrolling on your phone, not photographed it for social media, but really watched it, felt the temperature shift as the light changed, saw the clouds slowly morph into pink and gold, noticed the way the air itself seemed to soften. In that moment, you weren't asking, what does this mean for my life? You weren't trying to use the sunset to solve your problems. You were simply present, and that presence was enough. That's what the witness does every day, in every moment. It meets life without needing to control or interpret it, and in that pure meeting, meaning reveals itself naturally. Living as the witness also changes the way you relate to your own mind. You stop treating every thought as a command you must obey. You see that some thoughts are helpful. They guide you toward your goals, help you solve problems, remind you of what matters. But many thoughts are simply noise, echoes of old fears, leftover conditioning, other people's opinions lodged in your head. When you are identified with these thoughts, they pull you in every direction. But when you are the witness, you can see them arise, nod politely, and let them go without acting on them. You become the curator of your mind, not its prisoner. This shift also transforms how you deal with emotional pain. Instead of drowning in heartbreak, loss, or disappointment, you watch the pain with compassion. You allow yourself to feel it fully without becoming it entirely. You can say, there is sadness here, instead of, I am sadness. This small change in language reflects a massive change in perspective. It creates a space between you and the pain, and in that space, healing begins. You can hold your suffering gently, like a parent holding a crying child, knowing that it will pass. One of the most liberating aspects of living as the witness is that you stop needing life to constantly entertain, thrill, or fulfill you. You no longer panic when things feel slow or uneventful because you understand that stillness is part of the rhythm. Just as music needs silence between notes to create beauty, life needs moments of quiet observation to reveal its depth. You begin to see that what you once called meaninglessness was often just an absence of distraction, and that absence is exactly where true meaning waits for you. This is why Buddhist meditation is so powerful. It is a laboratory for witnessing. You sit in stillness, watch your breath, and notice your thoughts. At first, it feels impossible. The mind is restless, full of chatter. But with practice, you realize you don't have to chase every thought. You can let them pass. You can rest in the awareness that notices them. Over time, this awareness becomes your natural home, and you carry it into the chaos of daily life. In traffic, in arguments, in moments of uncertainty, you can return to the witness and see things clearly before reacting. When you live this way, the question, "What is my purpose?" begins to fade, not because you've given up, but because you've realized that your truest purpose is to be awake in your own life, to see clearly, to live from the awareness that you are not just a character in the story, but also the one watching the story unfold. This doesn't make you passive. In fact, it makes your actions more intentional because you are no longer acting from unconscious impulses. You are choosing. And here's the most beautiful part. When you live as the witness, you start to see meaning everywhere, in the way sunlight lands on the table in the morning, in the sound of rain on the roof, in the laughter of strangers passing by, in the quiet moments when you realize you've gone an entire hour without worrying about the future. Life stops being a problem to solve and becomes a mystery to live. You stop searching for meaning as though it were lost, and you start seeing that it was never gone. It was simply waiting for you to look up and notice. So if life feels meaningless to you right now, here is the invitation. Stop running. Stop hunting. Stop trying to wring purpose out of every moment like a wet cloth. Instead, sit down, breathe, watch. Become the witness of your own life, and you will see that meaning is not a treasure buried in the future. It's the light that has been shining on you all along, waiting for you to open your eyes. When you live this way, you are free, not because life has become perfect, but because you no longer need it to be. If you want, I can now take all 18 lessons we've built and merge them into one complete, seamless Buddhist YouTube script, so it flows like a life-changing documentary. Every lesson building naturally into the next. Do you want me to do that next? Live as if you have already returned home. The end of the search. There comes a point in the spiritual journey where the endless search for meaning begins to feel exhausting. You've read the books, listened to the talks, tried meditation, chased dreams, and sought wisdom in 100 different forms. You've asked life, again and again, what is my purpose? Why am I here? And sometimes you've felt close to the answer, only for it to slip away like water through your fingers. At some point, the searching itself becomes another form of suffering, a constant reminder that you believe you are still far from where you need to be. Buddhism offers a radical alternative to this endless quest. Live as if you have already arrived. Live as if you have already come home. The idea may seem strange at first. How can you live as if you've arrived when you still feel lost? How can you feel at home when life seems uncertain and confusing? But this is the subtle truth. The feeling of being lost is not because you are actually far away from your purpose. It's because you are constantly telling yourself that you are not there yet. You have built an invisible wall between yourself and the present moment, believing that meaning lies somewhere ahead in a future that is always just out of reach. Living as if you've already arrived dismantles that wall in an instant. Imagine you have been traveling for years, crossing deserts, climbing mountains, wandering through unfamiliar lands. Every step is driven by the thought, I must get home. You search for signs, question strangers, and study maps, but the more you search, the more uncertain you feel. Then one day, someone points to where you are standing and says, this is it. You've been home all along. At first, you resist. How can this be home? It doesn't match the perfect image you've carried in your mind, but slowly you begin to see the trees, the air, the people around you, the sound of your own breathing. This is life. This is home. You've been in it the entire time, but your mind was elsewhere, looking for something else. Buddhism teaches that the root of suffering is craving, wanting reality to be other than it is. When we crave meaning, we imagine it as something that will arrive later, after we've accomplished enough, healed enough, learned enough, or become wise enough. But what if the deepest meaning is simply to be fully alive right now, in this very breath? What if the idea that you are on the way is the only illusion keeping you from feeling at peace? Living as if you've already arrived does not mean you stop growing or learning. It does not mean you give up your dreams or your goals. It means you stop postponing your sense of being at home in the world. You stop telling yourself that life will finally begin when you find the perfect career, meet the perfect partner, or achieve spiritual enlightenment. You choose to believe that you are already exactly where you are meant to be. And from that place of acceptance, you act, you grow, you create. This shift changes the way you wake up in the morning. Instead of beginning the day with the unspoken belief that you must get somewhere before you can feel fulfilled, you wake up knowing you are already somewhere, here. You don't have to win the morning to deserve peace. You don't have to accomplish something extraordinary today to make your life meaningful. You are allowed to feel complete simply because you are breathing. This doesn't make you lazy. In fact, it frees your energy for action because you are no longer dragging the heavy burden of "I'm not there yet" through everything you do. The reason this practice is so powerful is because it untangles you from one of the most destructive mental habits, the if-then trap. You know it well. If I get this job, then I'll be happy. If I meet someone who loves me, then I'll feel worthy. If I find my purpose, then my life will finally make sense. But the if-then trap is a treadmill that never ends, because once one if is fulfilled, another appears. Even if you get the job, find the relationship, or achieve your goal, the mind quickly creates a new condition for happiness, living as if you've already arrived steps off the treadmill entirely. Buddhism often uses the metaphor of a lotus flower growing in muddy water. The lotus does not say, "When the mud is gone, I will bloom." It blooms in the mud. It grows not in spite of the mud, but because of it. The mud nourishes it. In the same way, you do not need a perfect life to feel at home in it. The imperfections, the uncertainties, the disappointments, these are part of the soil from which your purpose grows. If you wait for them to disappear before you start living fully, you will spend your entire life waiting. Living as if you've already returned home also transforms your relationships. Instead of approaching people as if they are part of a test you must pass on your way to a better life, you meet them as if they are part of your home already. You listen more deeply. You stop trying to extract meaning from them to fill your own emptiness, and you start appreciating them for who they are right now. Your presence becomes a gift, because you are no longer somewhere else in your mind while talking to them. You are here, with them, fully. This way of living also changes how you face challenges. When you believe that meaning lies somewhere ahead, difficulties feel like detours, annoying obstacles blocking you from getting where you need to go. But when you live as if you've already arrived, challenges become part of the landscape of home. You meet them not as unwanted interruptions, but as natural seasons of life, each with its own lessons. You stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and start asking, "What can I learn from this, here and now?" One of the hidden gifts of this practice is that it releases the pressure to make every moment extraordinary. When you live as if you've already arrived, ordinary moments regain their beauty. Making tea, folding laundry, walking to the store, these are no longer meaningless chores on the way to something better. They are part of the life you have chosen to inhabit fully. The warm cup in your hands, the scent of clean clothes, the sound of your footsteps, these are threads in the fabric of your homecoming. Meditation becomes even more meaningful in this context because it is the ultimate practice of arriving. Each time you sit, close your eyes and breathe, you are saying, "I am here, I am home." You watch your thoughts arise and pass without needing them to resolve anything. You sit in the presence of yourself without the constant push to improve, fix, or escape. This is the opposite of the restless search for meaning. It is the realization that meaning is already here, woven into your existence like the background hum of the universe. The great Zen teacher Thich Nhat Hanh once said, "The miracle is not to walk on water, the miracle is to walk on the earth." This is the heart of living as if you've already arrived. You realize that the most extraordinary thing is not to achieve some mythical future version of yourself, but to be fully alive in this version of yourself, right now. The miracle is to eat your breakfast with awareness, to smile at a stranger without thinking about whether they smile back, to feel the wind on your face and know you are part of something vast and ancient and alive. Over time, this way of living dissolves the question, "What is my purpose?" Not because you've given up, but because you've realized that your purpose is not a single grand achievement waiting for you in the distance. It is not a fixed destination you must reach before you can rest. Your purpose is to live as if you are already where you need to be, to inhabit your life with presence, compassion, and openness, and to let meaning grow naturally in the soil of that acceptance. When you truly live this way, you see that life is not a road leading somewhere else. It is the place itself. You are not a traveler passing through. You are the resident of this moment. You do not need to keep knocking on the door of your own existence, hoping someone will let you in. You are already inside. The journey, it turns out, was never about reaching a faraway home. It was about realizing you've been home all along. So if life feels meaningless, stop trying to escape it. Stop imagining that meaning is hiding in the next chapter. Instead, drop your bags, take a deep breath, and look around. You've arrived. You've always been here. Now live as if you have truly come home. Live as a lighthouse. Shine, even when surrounded by darkness. There is a moment in every sincere seeker's journey when they realize that their purpose may not be about what they take from the world, but what they give to it. For so long, we have been conditioned to believe that meaning is something we must find for ourselves, a hidden treasure buried somewhere in the soil of life, waiting to be dug up and claimed. We think, once I find my purpose, I will feel complete. But Buddhism invites us to turn this idea on its head. Perhaps purpose is not something you find and keep, but something you generate and offer, like light streaming from a lantern. In this way, life's meaning does not come from receiving enough to feel fulfilled, but from shining enough to illuminate the darkness around you. This is why I say, live as a lighthouse. A lighthouse does not wander the coastline searching for ships to save, nor does it demand gratitude from those it guides. It simply stands where it is, anchored in its place, shining without asking who will benefit from its light. This is the quiet dignity of purpose. You may ask, but how can I be a lighthouse when I feel empty? That emptiness is exactly what qualifies you. You see, a lighthouse is mostly empty space inside. Its strength comes not from being filled to the brim, but from having a clear, unobstructed chamber where the light can turn freely and shine far into the distance. Your emptiness is not a flaw. It is the open space through which your compassion, wisdom, and kindness can travel. The world is filled with people stumbling in the dark, people trapped in grief, fear, loneliness, and confusion. Some are desperately looking for a sign, a direction, a glimmer of hope to remind them they are not lost. You may not be able to solve all their problems, but you can offer something just as important: your light. That light may take the form of listening without judgment, speaking truth with gentleness, giving encouragement when others have only criticism, or simply showing up and being present. And here is the beautiful secret: when you shine for others, you also light your own way. In Buddhism, this is called bodhicitta, the awakened heart that lives not just for itself, but for the benefit of all beings. The bodhisattva, the one who walks the path of compassion, does not wait to feel perfect before helping others. They understand that the act of helping itself purifies the heart, that the practice of compassion deepens their own sense of meaning. You do not have to be a guru or a saint to live this way. You only have to be willing to stand still, to keep your light lit, and to face the darkness without letting it extinguish you. This is what a lighthouse does. It doesn't chase after ships or try to control the sea. It stands steady and luminous, no matter how violent the storm becomes. Think about the storms in your own life, the losses, betrayals, disappointments, and moments of despair. They may have made you feel broken at times, as if your light had gone out completely. But if you are still here, reading these words, then your light has not been extinguished. It has only been tested. Every storm you have endured has strengthened your foundation. Every night you thought would never end has made your beam shine clearer when morning came. The great paradox is that your suffering is often the very thing that allows others to trust your light. People sense when your compassion comes from real experience, when your empathy has been shaped by your own nights of struggle. Living as a lighthouse means accepting that you may never fully see the impact of your light. Ships pass in the night, guided by your presence, but you may never hear their stories. You may never know how many people avoided crashing into the rocks because you were there. This is why your purpose cannot depend on recognition or reward. The meaning is in the shining itself, in the quiet act of being available when the world grows dark. And make no mistake, there will be times when the darkness seems endless. The news will overflow with tragedy, your personal life may face heartbreak, and your faith in humanity may falter. In those moments, it is tempting to dim your light, to withdraw, to say, "Why bother?" But that is precisely when your light is needed most. The darker the night, the more a single flame can guide. Now, you might still be thinking, "But I don't know how to shine. I'm not special enough. I don't have anything to offer." This is the voice of the ego, not in its arrogant form, but in its insecure one. The ego imagines that you must first become extraordinary before you can be of service. But in truth, your greatest light is often in your simplest acts. The smile you give a stranger who feels invisible, the forgiveness you offer someone who thought they could never earn it, the moment you choose patience over irritation with someone who is struggling. These things seem small to you, but to someone else, they may be the reason they keep going. The Buddha taught that even a single kind word can change the direction of a person's day or their life. If you wait until you feel ready to shine, you may never begin. So shine now in whatever way you can. Another important truth is that a lighthouse must take care of itself in order to keep shining. If the keeper neglects to tend the lamp, clean the glass, and protect the structure from storms, the light will falter. The same is true for you. Compassion does not mean burning yourself out. You cannot guide others if you are drowning in your own exhaustion and neglect. Self-care is not selfish. It is the maintenance of your instrument of service. Meditation, rest, nourishing food, honest conversations, solitude. These are how you keep your light strong. And sometimes keeping your light means withdrawing for a while, not to abandon your post, but to strengthen your beam so it can cut through the fog again. When you live as a lighthouse, you also realize that you cannot control who receives your light or how they use it. Some will be grateful, others indifferent, and some may even resent you for revealing the truth of their situation. That is not your burden to carry. The sun does not apologize for rising, and the lighthouse does not apologize for showing the rocks. Your task is not to make people like your light. It is to let it shine faithfully, without attachment to the outcome. This is the essence of non-attachment in service. To give without clinging, to help without controlling. And here's the profound irony. When you shift your focus from finding meaning to shining meaning, life's emptiness stops feeling like a problem. You begin to see that the question, "What is my purpose?" is answered each time you choose to turn on your light in the darkness. Purpose stops being an abstract idea you chase and becomes a lived reality in each moment you show up for the world. You stop feeling like you're wandering without direction because you've anchored yourself, not to a specific destination, but to a way of being. Living as a lighthouse is not glamorous. It is not about heroic rescues or dramatic displays of wisdom. Most of the time it is quiet work, steady, uncelebrated, unseen. But it is deeply noble. In a world obsessed with chasing personal glory, the willingness to simply stand your ground and shine for others is a quiet revolution. You become a point of stability in an unstable world, a sign that not everyone is lost in their own ambitions and fears. And whether they say it or not, people notice. Your presence gives them permission to believe that stability and kindness are still possible. So if life feels meaningless, consider this. Perhaps you are not here to extract meaning from the world like a miner digging for gold. Perhaps you are here to be a source of meaning, to be the one who brings light, however small, into whatever darkness you find yourself in. You do not need a perfect plan. You do not need all the answers. You only need the courage to keep your light lit and the patience to stand through the storms. That is enough. That has always been enough. And one day, without even realizing it, you may find that your own path is no longer dark. The light you kept shining for others has been guiding you too all along. And in that moment, you will understand. You never had to search for your purpose. You were living it every time you chose to be the lighthouse in someone else's storm. Become the mountain, unshakable in your being, unmoved by life's storms. At some point on your journey to finding purpose, you must confront the truth that life will never stop testing you. It will never stop bringing seasons of uncertainty, waves of loss, moments of deep loneliness, and periods where the meaning you thought you had will crumble to dust before your eyes. If your sense of purpose depends entirely on circumstances being favorable, then your purpose will be as fragile as a leaf in the wind, tossed here and there by every change in weather. In Buddhism, we are reminded that the way to live with meaning is not to escape life's storms, but to become so deeply rooted that no storm can uproot you. The mountain does not run when the storm comes. It does not shake because of the wind. It does not plead with the rain to stop falling. It simply remains, vast, steady, and unmoved, allowing everything to come and go around it. When you learn to live like the mountain, you will no longer search for purpose as something out there to be found. Instead, you will become the embodiment of purpose itself, a living example of stability, resilience, and presence. The mountain does not prove its worth by moving. It proves its worth by standing still. This is where many people misunderstand purpose. They believe it is about constant movement, endless progress, and dramatic achievements. They think that to live a meaningful life, you must always be chasing, building, producing, and conquering. But in truth, much of life's deepest meaning comes from your ability to be present in your own being, to stand firm in your values, and to let your life speak through your constancy rather than your motion. This is not passivity. It is the active practice of stability. When others are swept away by fear, you remain centered. When others are blinded by anger, you remain clear. When others are consumed by despair, you remain grounded. This is what it means to live as the mountain. To live as the mountain, you must root yourself in something deeper than fleeting emotions and temporary goals. Your purpose cannot rest entirely on success, relationships, possessions, or recognition, because all of these will eventually shift, fade, or be taken away. Instead, anchor yourself in qualities that cannot be destroyed by time: compassion, integrity, wisdom, patience, and the unshakable awareness of your own inner stillness. These are the deep roots that hold you steady when life's storms rage. Without them, even the smallest gust of wind can leave you feeling lost and purposeless. With them, you can endure even the most devastating tempests without losing your center. Imagine yourself as this mountain. At its peak, you are closest to the infinite sky, the realm of vision, inspiration, and clarity. At its base, you are deeply embedded in the earth, connected to the strength of the ground itself. Between these two realms, your slopes are covered with forests, streams, and valleys, all the diversity of life. Storms may whip across your peak, landslides may scar your sides, snow may blanket you in silence, yet your foundation remains. You do not fight the changing weather. You accept it as part of your nature. This is the essence of equanimity, not indifference, but the deep knowing that you can endure both sunshine and storms without losing yourself. One of the greatest mistakes people make when searching for purpose is believing they must first feel complete before they can live meaningfully. But the mountain does not wait for perfect weather to stand tall. It stands in all seasons, knowing that the storms do not diminish its worth. Similarly, you do not have to fix every part of your life before you can be purposeful. You do not have to have every answer before you can begin to live in alignment with your deepest values. You simply need to stand where you are, as you are, and let your life be a statement of resilience. In Buddhism, this is closely related to the practice of upekkha, the cultivation of unshakable balance in the face of life's highs and lows. To practice upekkha is to stop being a prisoner of your circumstances. You no longer let your happiness depend entirely on whether life gives you what you want. Instead, you learn to hold joy in one hand and sorrow in the other without losing your grip on either. You are able to act with kindness even in the face of cruelty, to offer wisdom even when surrounded by confusion, and to remain calm even when the world around you is collapsing. This is not cold detachment, it is the warmth of stability, a stability that others can lean on when they have lost their own footing. And this is where your purpose deepens beyond personal fulfillment. When you become the mountain, you become a refuge for others. People may come to you in their moments of crisis, seeking the steadiness they cannot yet find within themselves. You may not have all the answers for them, and you don't need to, because often what they need most is not advice, but presence. Just as weary travelers find comfort in resting against the side of a mountain, people will find comfort in your ability to remain grounded when everything else feels unstable. And here's the irony. When you offer this stability to others, you strengthen it within yourself. Purpose becomes a shared energy, something you give and receive in equal measure. However, living as the mountain requires you to accept solitude. Mountains are often solitary figures, rising alone from the plains, standing apart from the noise of the world below. This solitude can feel isolating at first, but in time you will see that it is a gift. It gives you space to hear your own inner voice, to deepen your connection to the timeless truths that lie beneath the noise of daily life. In a world addicted to constant stimulation and external validation, your ability to be alone without feeling empty is a rare and powerful strength. Solitude sharpens your clarity and purifies your sense of purpose. It allows you to see that your worth is not determined by how many people approve of you, but by how deeply you remain true to yourself. Living as the mountain also means embracing patience. Mountains are not formed overnight. They are shaped over millennia by forces both gentle and violent. Likewise, your purpose will not arrive in a single moment of clarity and remain unchanged forever. It will evolve, deepen, and sometimes even dissolve, only to take new shape again. There will be seasons when you feel full of meaning, and seasons when your life feels barren and empty. The temptation in those empty seasons is to abandon your post, to uproot yourself in search of greener pastures. But the mountain teaches you to stay, to let the seasons pass without panicking, to trust that spring will return, even if the winter feels endless. This is the kind of trust that transforms emptiness into fertile ground for new meaning. When you live this way, you stop being obsessed with the question, "What is my purpose?" and start living as though you are purpose itself. You stop trying to manufacture meaning and begin embodying it through the way you show up each day. You become less concerned with whether your life fits some grand narrative and more focused on whether you are living with depth, truth, and compassion in this very moment. And slowly, something shifts. The desperate hunger for meaning softens into a quiet confidence that you are already living it. And perhaps the most beautiful part is this. The mountain does not need to be noticed to be meaningful. Its worth is not in its fame, but in its being. You may live your entire life without public recognition, without monumental achievements to display, and still live a life of profound purpose if you live as the mountain, steady, true, and grounded in your own being. You will leave behind not monuments of stone, but something far more enduring. The memory, in the hearts of those who knew you, that there was someone who could not be shaken, someone who stood through the storms, someone who reminded them that they, too, could stand. This is the invitation of Lesson 21. Stop chasing purpose like a treasure hidden in the distance. Instead, root yourself where you are, become the mountain, and let your unshakable presence be the meaning you have been searching for all along. When the winds howl, stand. When the rains fall, stand. When the sun shines, stand. And when your own mind whispers that you are lost, remember, you are exactly where you need to be, and your very being is the purpose you thought you had to find. Dissolve the self. Become one with the flow of life. At the deepest level of Buddhist wisdom, the secret to finding purpose in what feels like a meaningless life is to realize that the you who is desperately searching for meaning is the very barrier preventing you from finding it. The self you think you are, the name, the history, the face in the mirror, the bundle of desires, fears, and memories, is not the solid, permanent entity you believe it to be. It is a story. A useful story for navigating the world, but still a story. And stories, while powerful, are not reality itself. The Buddha taught that clinging to the self, this fictional I, is the root of suffering. We exhaust ourselves trying to protect it, feed it, glorify it, and give it lasting importance, only to discover that it is made of sand slipping through our fingers. The truth is, life begins to feel meaningless, not because it truly is, but because the false self cannot find a meaning that will satisfy it for long. It always wants more achievement, more recognition, more security, more control. But when you finally see the self for what it is, a temporary construction, something extraordinary happens. The heavy, desperate search for personal significance begins to dissolve. You stop clinging so tightly to your story and begin to see that you are part of something infinitely larger. Imagine a drop of water trying to understand its purpose apart from the ocean. It could spend its whole existence worrying about where it's going, whether it's important enough, whether it will dry up before it finds meaning. But the moment it realizes it is the ocean, not separate from it, the question of purpose changes entirely. It no longer needs to invent meaning. It is meaning because it belongs to the vast, flowing whole. This is what happens when you dissolve the boundaries of the self. You begin to see that your life is not some isolated fragment you have to fix or perfect to be worthy. You are the universe, experiencing itself as a human being for a brief moment in time. You are the trees swaying in the wind, the river carving its path through the earth, the moon rising over the mountains, the laughter of a child, the quiet breath in the dark. When you see yourself this way, you no longer need to frantically search for a personal mission to justify your existence. Simply being here, fully alive and aware, is already an expression of infinite purpose. But dissolving the self is not about denying your individuality or pretending you don't have preferences, dreams and challenges. It's about loosening the grip on the illusion that you are a completely separate, isolated being. The great suffering of modern life is the belief in absolute separation, that I am over here and life is over there, and my job is to conquer it, control it, and make it give me meaning. This false division creates loneliness, anxiety, and the endless hunger for validation. But when you dissolve the walls between yourself and life, you begin to live from a place of connection rather than desperation. Every encounter becomes sacred because it is not you meeting the world. It is life meeting itself in countless forms. This is where the Buddhist teaching of anatta, no self, becomes not just a philosophy but a living practice. You begin to notice the moments when your ego tightens, when it demands recognition, when it fears loss, when it insists that things must go a certain way. Instead of obeying those impulses automatically, you create space around them. You watch them arise and pass like clouds drifting through the sky. This watching is not cold detachment, it is compassionate awareness. You understand that the ego is not the enemy. It is simply a tool that becomes dangerous when mistaken for your true identity. Like a child who is afraid of the dark, the ego clings to control because it doesn't know it is part of something vast and luminous. When you comfort it with awareness rather than feed it with endless cravings, it begins to soften, and you are free to move with the natural flow of life. And what is this flow? It is the eternal dance of change. Everything in life is in motion: birth and death, gain and loss, joy and sorrow, success and failure. When you live in resistance to this dance, you suffer because you keep trying to freeze life into shapes that will not hold. But when you dissolve the self and merge with the flow, you move with grace through the changing tides. You understand that the river does not need to explain where it is going to justify its journey. It simply flows, and in flowing, it fulfills its nature. Likewise, you do not need to pin your worth on a single accomplishment or identity. Your purpose is to be fully alive within the flow, to participate in life's unfolding without demanding that it meet the rigid conditions of your ego's agenda. When you live this way, even the smallest moments take on a profound sense of meaning. Washing dishes becomes a meditation on impermanence, the warm water, the clink of porcelain, the rhythm of your breath. Listening to the rain becomes an intimate conversation with the universe. Sitting with a friend in silence becomes a holy act, because there is no pressure to prove yourself or extract something from the moment. You realize that purpose is not a distant mountaintop to climb, but the ground you are already standing on. It is not an achievement to win, but a presence to embody. This is why so many spiritual masters appear content doing simple, ordinary things, because they have dissolved the false self that insists on constant drama and significance, and in its place they have found the quiet fullness of being. But perhaps the most liberating part of dissolving the self is the way it changes your relationship with suffering. When you are deeply identified with the self, suffering feels personal, as if life is attacking you. But when you see that the self is not the totality of what you are, suffering becomes something you can witness without being completely consumed by it. Pain still comes, but it moves through you like wind through the branches of a tree. You can allow it to be there without needing to build your entire identity around it. You stop saying, "Why is this happening to me?" and begin to ask, "What is life showing me through this?" This shift alone can transform even the darkest periods of your life into fertile ground for awakening. In dissolving the self, you also dissolve the endless comparison that poisons so many lives. When you see yourself as a separate self, you constantly measure your worth against others, their success, their beauty, their happiness. But when you see yourself as part of the whole, comparison loses its grip. You understand that just as the ocean does not compete with the river, you do not need to compete with other expressions of life. Each being is a unique unfolding of the same source. The flower does not envy the tree, it simply blooms. And so you too can bloom in your own way, without trying to match the shape or speed of anyone else's journey. Now here's the paradox. Dissolving the self does not make you passive or indifferent to life. On the contrary, it frees you to engage more fully, because you are no longer weighed down by the constant need to protect and inflate your ego. You can love without clinging, work without burning out, serve without resentment, and create without fear of failure. You are not trying to prove your worth through your actions. You are simply expressing the fullness that is already within you. And when you live this way, your life becomes a gift to the world, not because you are chasing purpose, but because you have become an open channel for it. The ultimate realization is this: you are not here to find purpose as if it were a hidden object buried somewhere in the world. You are here to awaken to the fact that you are purpose in motion. You are life, aware of itself, playing out its infinite possibilities through the unique lens of your existence. The ocean does not need to search for water. It is water. You do not need to search for meaning. You are meaning. And when you live from this place, when you dissolve the self and merge with the flow, you discover that the life you once feared was meaningless is, in fact, overflowing with significance. Every breath, every glance, every heartbeat is a miracle. And the great emptiness you once tried so hard to escape, it is no longer a void to be feared, but the boundless space in which all of life unfolds. So let the self dissolve. Let the boundaries soften. Let yourself flow with the river of life without demanding to know its destination. In doing so, you will find that purpose was never a destination to reach, but the very current that has been carrying you all along. When you live this way, you also begin to understand that purpose is not only about you. It is not about fulfilling some personal destiny while the rest of the world revolves in the background. Purpose is relational. It is born in connection. The Buddha taught that nothing exists in isolation. Every life is part of the great net of interdependence. Your meaning is not separate from the meaning of others. Your life touches theirs in ways you may never see, and their lives touch yours. This is why even the smallest act of kindness, the smallest gesture of presence, ripples outward with a significance you may never measure. And this is why the search for purpose is not complete until you begin to live as though your life is a gift for others, not just for yourself. You stop asking the question, "What is my purpose?" altogether. Not because you no longer care, but because you have become the answer. You are living it in every breath, every choice, every act of compassion. And this is the beautiful, humbling realization. You were not put here to find purpose as if it were a lost coin in the street. You were put here to be purposeful, to bring awareness, love, and integrity into the way you inhabit your days. This is the secret the emptiness was trying to teach you all along. So if you are standing at the edge of your life, feeling lost, feeling as though nothing matters, remember this: you do not need to wait for permission to begin. You do not need the perfect plan. You do not need certainty. You only need to show up, fully, honestly, courageously, for the life you are already living. Begin where you are. Touch what is in front of you with care. Say yes to the moment, even if it is imperfect. Let go of the need to have it all figured out, and trust that meaning will grow naturally from the seeds you plant in the present. And when you find yourself wondering whether your life has purpose, stop for a moment. Feel the ground beneath your feet. Feel your breath moving in and out. Listen to the quiet hum of the world around you. This aliveness, this connection, this capacity to love is purpose. It always has been. It always will be.